In the right corner.
Left screen, right side, midway.
It's Kate Fletcher, 7278.
Specific.
Got it.
Okay, so we are recording.
Okay, very good. I will call this meeting to order. For guests in the room, please use the sign-in sheet if you'd like to make a public comment during our public comment section. And I will now turn it over to Alexis for the roll call.
Okay. Bill Brock,
Here.
Jim Knight,
Here.
Sarah Lucas. Present. Steve Nagy,
Present.
Brian Frank,
Present.
Jeff Pritchard. Jeff Pritchard sent us an email that he won't be able to be here. Is he excused?
Yes.
Okay. And Catherine Stevens.
Present.
That concludes roll call.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we will move on to public comment, which is limited to 2 minutes per speaker. Do we have anyone for public comment today?
Yeah, so first off, I'd like to acknowledge that we did receive written public comment from Benny Benson regarding the TOR grant approval, public comments from Bruce Bennett, Harry Nickerson, and Ken Mooser on the temporary rulemaking topic. These comments were forwarded to the State Aviation Board. So do we have anybody written on the sheet? No? Okay, so we're in person, so we'll go ahead and move on to online, and it looks like we have Ben Williams. So give me 1 second to give Ben access to his microphone. Okay, Ben, go ahead and please state your name for the record and any affiliation. And you should have access now.
Mic is off.
He should have access to it now. Ben Williams, are you able to hear us and are you able to unmute yourself? For Ben Williams. So I'm going to disable his mic for now. We might be, so
We'll
we'll
go back. If Ben can put a note in the chat.
let me allow the chat, this time around. There we go. They changed where these settings are in here.
Alexis, did you want to turn on the camera for the room too?
Oh, that would be, thank you for that. Sorry. Bear with me. So I have allowed the chat now for the duration of public comment. So Ben, if you're able to write in the chat, please go ahead and do so. Chair Stevens, would you like to try the next person?
Yeah, we can do that. Can you put the screen back up?
Yes. Okay. Since I can't unmute, it is control from your end. Okay, so Ben, I have now allowed you microphone access. Are you able to unmute? On our end, you're now able to unmute. Okay. It looks like I have allowed his microphone.
Mm-hmm.
So it must, it is not our end.
All right, let's see if the next one works.
Okay, let's see. So the next person is Brad. Brad, could you, you have microphone access now. Could you please unmute yourself and state your name for the record? Yeah, he does have access to his mic. Also unable to mute.
Oh, man, maybe got something here. You hear
Here we
me?
go.
Yay.
Yes.
Yeah. Now I understand the confusion. He needs to go to the top of the page. That just popped up. So maybe Ben will be able to um, be reflective, but he's still got a line through his microphone from my view. But at any rate, ODAV board, great to see you again. It's been too long. Brad Schuster, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, Northwest Mountain Region Manager. Wanted to say, first of all, I'm speaking about the VPD emergency rule that you're going to be hearing later today. Very much appreciate the partnership with particularly Kenji and Tony as I've tried to update myself on the topic. I've reached out to many of the stakeholders, and having been here 4 years ago or so when we started the process, I can tell you that from my perspective, many strides have been made positively. I'm aware how seriously the FAA takes VPDs, and we share that serious concern for them. So great progress. The only thing I would add is I just request that the board and ODAV itself continue to listen to the impacted members there at Aurora State, and incorporate their ideas. They've got a lot of good ones that I think can, as you further evolve this policy. But thank you for everyone's efforts on this thus far, and appreciate, like I said, continued partnership with me and particularly the stakeholders at Aurora State.
Thank you for your comment, Brad. And go back to Ben.
Yeah, let's see if we can just get Ben. So, okay. So we've allowed Ben's, oh.
Yeah.
Ben.
So it looks like it looks like it just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes.
That was a fun exercise in technology.
We've had worse.
So thank you for the time this morning. You'll know from the state airport manager's report at your last board meeting that work continues on the draft Aurora Airport Master Plan with the intent to bring it before you, this body, for approval and adoption this year. Given the comments of land use non-compatibility from the impacted 2 counties and 2 cities, that presumably is where most of the work is taking place. My comments to you this morning are not about land use, but rather total operations, one of the 3 factors needed to justify airport expansion and runway extension. We are now in 2026 and have 4 years of FAA data on actual operations to compare with forecasted operations. Chair Stevens will know from as being a PAC member that as the PAC process was delayed for more than 2 years, many of us pointed out that settling on actual data from 2016 through 2021 was inadequate, as total operation numbers for 2022 and then 2023 and then 2024 and now 2025 became available. Extrapolating the forecast total operations for those years result in 77,046 operations for 2022, contrasted with actual of 64,651. 77,298 for 2023 forecasted, contrasted with actual of 63,015. 77,550 for 2024, contrasted with actual of 66,242. And 77,802 for 2025, contrasted with actual of 61,646. Put another way, that's a shortfall against forecast of 16.1% for 2022, 18.5% for 2023, 14.6% for 2024, and 20.8% for 2025. ODAV and their consultant claimed incorporating subsequent years would corrupt the original data set, but the actual numbers now evidence a willful blindness to the reality on the ground in order to achieve a predetermined outcome of expansion. And I certainly want you to be aware of this for when the master plan comes before you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ben.
And then I did have Steve from the Oregon Pilots Association reach out to me by email to sign up for public comment. Steve, I'm gonna allow your mic. Would you like to give public comment? You should have access to your mic now, Steve, if you would like to give public comment.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please state your name for the record.
Okay, Steve Bateman, President, Oregon Pilots Association, OPA. Well, good morning, everyone. I was planning on giving an update about the Oregon Pilots Association this morning, as many good things are happening. But I think instead I'll refer you to our new website, oregonpilot.org. It contains a lot more information about what we've been doing. Instead, I'd like to use my 2 minutes to provide a perspective on the agenda item dealing with vehicle and pedestrian deviations at Aurora Airport. OPA's general position on such issues is that education and training will achieve better, quicker, and more long-lasting results compared with punitive action. OPA understands that much effort has been expended on markings and signage, posters, and so on, and yet the issues still remain. OPA believes that such incursions are not due to wanton recklessness, but rather ignorance, and ignorance is best alleviated through training rather than the application of fines. The suggested escalating increases of such fines for continued infractions also implies that the individuals concerned can be identified, so making an even stronger case for the application of training. Furthermore, an initial warning will likely do very little unless it's accompanied by some level of required training to prevent repeat occurrences. Also, the fact that Aurora suffers from many more such deviations compared with other airports suggests this is a local issue that should be addressed very specifically, rather than wielding the large stick of punitive action, which also has the unfortunate effect of setting precedent. OPA is very interested to hear more about the efforts to contain these deviations through recurrent education, driver training, and methods to prevent the unauthorized or unescorted access to the airport. On a matter of timing, I see there's an Aurora RSAP meeting scheduled for March the 11th, and that one topic on the agenda is discuss current surface safety concerns and trends. Given that legislation is generally easier to implement than reverse, OPA and its members requests that the State Board holds off on any decision to file the proposed rulemaking until the appropriate parties have met and discussed workable alternatives that result in actually solving the problem of the root problem rather than imposing fines. OPA does understand the issue is a serious one and offers to be involved in the exploration of alternatives to get to the mutually desired endpoint, safe airport operations. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Steve.
Okay, and then is there anybody else that would like to give public comment? Please use the raise hand function. We'll give you a second here to go ahead and use that. And seeing none, that would conclude our public comment section. I'm going to now also disable the chat as well.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and then Alexis, you're going to walk us through a new public comment submission process, correct?
Yes, correct. Got that? I chose the wrong wrong screen. All right, one more time. There we go. Great. Okay, yeah. So I'm Alexis Morris, and I'm the board administrator for the State Aviation Board. So we just wanted to inform the public on some possible and upcoming public comment updates that we will have. So what are the changes? So public written comments may be submitted beginning the day after a board meeting. So as it stands right now, our public notice goes out and that leaves about a week window for people to submit their public comments. And they can submit a public comment all the way up to 5 p.m. the day before a meeting. So with this, we would change that deadline to closing public comment 1.5 weeks before the next scheduled board meeting. Written comment received after that deadline would still be brought to the board. It will just be sent to them after that board meeting, after the next following board meeting. There will not be any changes to in-person or virtual verbal comments during meetings at this time. Why are we making this change? This is to provide adequate time for staff and board members to review and consider written comments ahead of the next board meeting. Because as of now, if comments can be submitted up to 5 p.m., so that only leaves a very little amount of time to consider these comments. And we want to allow the board to have plenty of time to look at these comments, review them, and take them into consideration. We also want to allow the public more time to submit public comments for the next board meeting. So this would allow them a whole 2.5 week time period now, where they can submit right after the board meeting. So say, for example, after today, public comment will be open and they can submit it all the way up to a 1.5 weeks before the next board meeting. This is also to maintain the continued public access to submitting comments even after the deadline. When are we going to make this? When are we going to do this? Implementation will occur after adoption of the master plan. We will continue to give ongoing reminders on this change, and we'll also post it on our website and announce when the timeline has been finalized for this change. By making this change after the master plan, it allows for less confusion on giving public comment. We want people to be able to submit their public comments and do so how they have been up to this point until the master plan, and then we can kind of implement a deeper change. So that's currently the changes to public comment. Now for me to put on my communications hat for like 2 seconds. Yes.
And Chair, if I may, just to be clear, you're talking about the Aurora
Yes.
master plan.
Yes, the Aurora master plan. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Yes, the Aurora, it would be after the Aurora master plan. Just a reminder that we have our monthly newsletter, and you can sign up for that on our website by clicking the subscribe to ODAV emails and selecting community events and outreach. We send out a monthly newsletter every month, and this is accumulation of everything that the agency has been doing in the last month. So it's a great resource for information. And then I'll plug our social medias at OR Aviation on every platform, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Are there any questions?
What's the connection to the Aurora master plan for the date kickoff?
Yes, it's just to allow, like, it's because the Aurora master plan with public comment there, that public comment is most likely going to be different. So we don't want to add multiple different changes right all at once. So we want to just go with the master plan, and then after that's been the Aurora master plan, after that's been implemented, then we can make this change to all of our other meetings going forward.
Because we really are not trying to squash public comment. We actually welcome public comment. We just want to make sure moving forward that we have the most, knowledge ahead of time so staff can address questions and the board has time to absorb, because sometimes we don't get a lot of public comment, but sometimes we do. And there's some homework involved. But we didn't want to make that change with the master planning process at Aurora, because we, like Alexis said, we don't want to add to any confusion in there.
I didn't want the public to think there's some strategy involved.
Exactly.
Agency. So thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
And on the to staff and or to Stacy, I'm assuming this is in compliance with any state policy or law. as far as the amount of timeliness, and there's no action the board has to take to make this obviously administrative change. There's nothing we have to do to say like, yes, we would approve this change. Just want to be clear that this is in compliance with any state policy or law about public comment.
So yes, Chair Stevens, Vice Chair. Yes, it's in compliance with law. As far as board action, that is something you might want to consider. And I don't think this has to happen today because that plan's not coming before you at the time, but but we'll look into it. The chair has the authority to control the meeting and how comments are submitted. And there's nothing in state law that sets a deadline for when that's submitted, but the board does need to have an opportunity to receive and consider comments. And so that's really where the responsibilities are. So as far as a decision by the board, it's possible that you do need to make one, but I'm sure that staff will bring it back. They'll bring it back before it actually gets instituted. And if there's a decision that needs to be made, then they'll ask you to do that.
Great.
If I were doing it this way, this gives the public an opportunity to comment on our strategy of how we're handling future public comments. So.
And it doesn't change anything with our live board meetings. So we still have public comment available at the board meetings. Okay, thank you, Alexis. Okay, we will then move on to the temporary rulemaking for violations and civil penalties for unauthorized access and vehicle pedestrian deviations at the Aurora State Airport. That is Tony.
Good morning. Thank you and to the public for the comments that we received, and do appreciate those comments. Absolutely looking to continue collaboration with airport users and incorporate, their input through the permanent rulemaking process as we continue working on this, as well as just ongoing outreach and education on BPDs. Also, I looked at the written comments that we've received, especially on the road or roadway improvements of the airport, and ODAV has been supportive of that, and we'll continue to collaborate and work with the airport users on that where we can. So with that in mind, I do have just some background that I want to go over before I launch into the presentation. We included in the packet a presentation and the filing with the statement of need and justification, as well as some other supporting documents. So I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. But first, vehicle and pedestrian deviations at the Aurora State Airport have been a challenge for the over 10 years that since the tower has opened. It's been a pretty significant challenge for quite a while, with the Aurora Airport leading the nation in the sheer volume of deviations that have occurred at the airport. ODAV's goal is to ensure a safe operating environment by preventing BPDs. We would absolutely be thrilled if we didn't have a single VPD occur and we didn't have to issue any kind of penalties or violations from this point forward. That is our number one goal, is to just have these deviations caused by unauthorized access and access or movements within the movement area that are not cleared by the air traffic control tower to have those cease. So that is our number one goal and objective with this. Since we last went through a rulemaking process on this topic back in 2022, we didn't continue with the rules because we heard from the airport users that there was interest and demand in safety training, and we agreed. We published this training just under a year ago, and that is publicly available. It's on our website. We've conducted a lot of outreach, and unfortunately, since publishing the training, instead of a downward trend, we are experiencing a very concerning spike in deviations this last year. So we continue to discuss the topic of VPDs in every single monthly meeting in the Aurora stakeholder meetings, PAM. And we continue to publish outreach and encourage people to review the training that we have on our website. And this is intended for all users and visitors of the Aurora State Airport. We have sent numerous outreach and asked users of the airport to raise awareness for their employees and guests. And we've made the physical improvements to the airport as mentioned previously. In October of 2025, we did receive a letter from the FAA that identifies the recent spike in an escalating trend in VPDs at the Aurora State Airport. They said that we have the highest number of VPDs in the region, the Northwest Mountain region, and we have also heard from the FAA that we're number 2 in the nation behind Chicago O'Hare. They also identified the need for corrective action from ODAV, and that's what we're doing here today. ODAV is also discussing a new topic, which is authorization. This is already an administrative rule, and I think this topic is really helping, where I think there were some misunderstandings of what actually is involved with getting authorization from ODAV and being able to enter these restricted areas of the airport. So finally, no, most people are not, negligently or intentionally trying to cause VPDs. However, I do want to point out that in public meetings discussing this topic several times, airport users have said the only problem with VPDs is that the tower reports them. And this is absolutely the mentality that we are trying to correct. ODAV is taking this topic very seriously, and we're hoping that all of the users of the airport will take this seriously as well. So today, this temporary rule is an emergency rulemaking to mitigate VPDs by deterring unauthorized access or movements within the controlled movement area. And it has a 6-month shelf life while we work on the permanent rulemaking that will include convening the rulemaking advisory committee and opportunities for public comment before we present the permanent rule to the board for approval. Okay. Any questions while I pull up the presentation?
One, Tony. Could you please kind of enumerate the quantity? A substantial increase. I don't know if that means 5 over 1 or 500 over 100. So what can you give us a sense of?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I think we had 0 in 2020 or 2021, and then we had 1. And in the last 2 years, we've had, I believe, 19 and 14.
You said O'Hare, I said, holy moly, how could that be? So,
and that, yeah.
And, just a comparison, that's not really great that we're number 2 from Chicago O'Hare, but so at Eugene, we may have 1 a year or not. Sometimes we have 0, not quite.
Yeah, it's a significant issue. Let's see, jumping into the presentation here. All of this information was included in the packet. I've just restated the statement of need and justification, and I'm happy to go into any detail here and explain the draft rules that we have come up with, and the need and justification we have. But I wasn't intending to just kind of rehash all the information we put out there. But shortly, this rule is needed to address the VPD issue, which is an urgent safety issue at the airport. And the rule will help us enforce that. And then again, just reiterating that the permanent rulemaking will include opportunities for public comment and input from a rulemaking advisory committee. And then stop me if you have any questions. In summary, the draft rules that we have establish rules for VPDs, vehicle pedestrian deviations, and civil penalties. We've included definitions and described the conduct that is a vehicle pedestrian deviation. We've described the responsible parties and the civil penalties that may be imposed. We've also included provisions for contested cases, cases for multiple responsible parties, consideration for the department to reduce or waive civil penalties, and an exception for the civil penalty formula from other administrative rule. Finally, we're amending the already established OER 738 Division 140 rule by adding vehicle pedestrian deviations as a violation for which civil penalties may be imposed. And again, this was all included in the packet. I wasn't intending to go over all of this in great detail, but I've broken out all the sections here. So this is that first section on vehicle pedestrian deviations as well as definitions. And stop me if you have any questions. Yes.
How did the monetary amount, how did you arrive at that? What's this, how did you reach that standard of what the penalty, dollar penalty would be?
So great question. The rulemaking process for this topic has actually started as far back as 2019, when the legislature granted ODAB the authorization to fine up to $2,500 per occurrence for these violations. And so when we did the rulemaking process back in 2022, we looked at a fine structure that was a little higher than what we're proposing today. And the input that we received back in 2022 was that the fines were excessive. So we did introduce a lower fine scale or starting point. Instead of, I think we had $1,000 for the first violation, we're looking at, well, first a warning and then $500.
So who is the body that determines those dollar amounts? Is it staff or we as a board, or is it higher up than that?
Well, the limit was set by the legislature, and so we have, and it's on the next slide here. We have a scale for, again, the first written warning for a single deviation within a certain time period, 6 months, and then 500 for a second deviation, 1,000 for a third, 1,500 for a fourth, and so on. The cap is $2,500. And however, I do want to point out that for a single violation where the responsible party has intentionally or with reckless regard committed a vehicle pedestrian deviation, any of those can be fined up to $2,500.
That's the legislature's decision on the $2,500.
That limit was set back in 2019. Right. Correct.
Thanks.
A quick question on for the person that actually do the violation versus the property that allowed that transport. How does board define those two?
Right. So it's let's see, it's defined in 3. So a conduct of a vehicle pedestrian deviation is any person or vehicle, including aircraft operated by non-pilots, that enters or moves within the movement and safety areas without clearance from air traffic control, or a person provides, allows, or otherwise causes another person to enter or move within the movement and safety areas without clearance. So that can be caused by failing to prevent unauthorized access by allowing piggybacking, not maintaining positive control over guests inside the fence, or failing to prevent unauthorized access from private property. Yep. Okay, so moving forward, again, some information on contested cases, how that will be handled. And then for multiple responsible parties, there may be multiple responsible parties. There are many slices in this Swiss cheese model, and we're not just looking to go after everybody. Each violation will be, handled on a case-by-case basis, and based on the factors involved in that deviation.
Is there an appeals process?
That's the Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's part of the contested cases.
That's what your definition is.
That's correct. That's correct. It would be considered a state agency order, and all state agency orders have an appeal process available.
And who's the judicial body for the appeals process?
It would be the Office of Administrative Hearings. So the way that it would work is that if somebody actually receives a civil penalty or even a warning, the way that it works is you give a notice of the agency's intent to do X, to issue a civil penalty or to issue some sort of warning. And then that person has a due process right to request a hearing, and that is in front of the Office of Administrative Hearings. So it's not a circuit court, it's another administrative agency. DOJ is actually the one that would represent the agency, if that occurs.
And that's fairly common across all agencies in this. I know the
Absolutely.
answer. I just want to make.
Yeah,
Right.
state agencies. Yes.
Okay, yeah,
If penalties were collected, how would that be applied? How would those funds get applied?
Stacey, do you have more info on that?
Well, as far as applied, no, because I think that that's a.
Well, so how are they collected or how are they used?
Where the funds go?
It's the budget general fund,
Yeah, this is our operating budget.
budget general. Fund.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you meant collected or.
That's what most municipalities do as an ex-mayor, so when we collect traffic fines, it's in our budget. That what this is the expected amount of revenue that we're going to get from tickets. And then it pops into the general fund.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it could be reapplied into training or some way to address.
Well, it can be, if that's what the budget
Okay, yeah.
puts money into training, you could say, well, that's coming from here. But the general fund is kind of this big balloon of money
Sure.
that you allocate out to whatever you
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah, certainly our efforts and time spent on developing training and coming soon implementing the driver's training portion won't even scratch the surface of the revenue we expect to collect. So, yeah. Okay, again, just a little more info on the factors that the director may consider in reducing or waiving civil penalties. And then finally, the rule that we're amending is the OAR 738 Division 140, just adding the vehicle pedestrian deviations as a violation that may be.
Could you go back to that last comment about the director has the authority to modify the penalty? How does that process work?
So based on the factors listed, the director may review those and make a decision to reduce or waive a penalty. Okay, so that is the entirety of the temporary rulemaking. And we are asking for, oh, I'm sorry, I was off by one. So this was the civil penalty formula exception from other Oregon revised statute. And then the amendment on the rule that we're including vehicle and pedestrian deviations is a violation which may where a civil penalty may be imposed. And so finally, staff's request and recommendation is to approve the temporary rulemaking on establishing civil penalties for vehicle pedestrian deviations at the Aurora State Airport.
So,
I'll just add, and I know you added about Eugene. Typically, we see somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 vehicle pedestrian deviations at any of our airports on any given year. I know they usually occur associated with construction projects and are not generally associated or some other type of unauthorized access that occurs. Typically, it's not the based tenants. But when it is, if there is somebody that happens, there are penalties associated, and generally it's loss of the access privilege as well as an administrative penalty that again is handled through an administrative process because we are a public agency as well. So these are not, though this is how the state is choosing to organize and have these, this is not outside the norm for both our commercial airports as well as our GA airport, where we handle them very similarly.
Thank you, Steve. I want to add one, add on to that a little bit. In all of our data on vehicle pedestrian deviations, overwhelmingly, I mean, almost all of them have occurred from people who do not have ODAB's authorization to enter the movement area. So we don't have the ability to do, remove an authorization or privilege that we've provided to them because they don't have it in the first place. So this is what we're looking to address. And then we are, I'm going to mention here just soon in my next presentation that we're implementing the driver's training portion where we will be granting that authorization.
Tony, I just have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So this is about fining. Is there also a provision, or does it already exist, to revoke access? And I know you just said that most of these people don't have
Right.
approval from ODAB to be on the airfield. So they're being escorted essentially.
Yeah, so in the September 20, and I believe it was the 2024 board meeting, I did a deep dive on the pedestrian deviations. And in one of those, one of the challenges I identified in that presentation was kind of the lack of intermediate enforcement for, especially for our through the fence agreements. And the 2/3 of all of the taxiway frontage is private property with through the fence access. And we can either hold them in default for an unauthorized use of the agreement. And the only other thing we can do if they don't, satisfy remedy is terminate. And we're not interested in drastic action here. We're just, this is our intermediate step to encourage compliance.
And then obviously the number one reason that we're addressing this, which we've been trying to address for years, is safety, because these violations aren't just vehicles or people crossing a line. It can actually be a very serious safety infraction, and people and property can be harmed.
Right.
So
Yeah, some of these have been categorized as runway incursions, and some of these have had conflict with aircraft operations.
and then if ODAB, I know you've been working collaboratively with the FAA for many years on this, but if ODAB were not to take additional action on this, that you were encouraged to do so in the letter from the FAA, what could some of the potential outcomes for the ODAB be?
Yeah, it can definitely affect, and this was mentioned in the letter that we received from the FAA back in October 2025. It can definitely affect funding from the FAA, which should have a significant impact on the airport.
It could also impact your airport certification, correct?
Right.
You don't want to be in that position.
Right.
So Tony, this rulemaking is for all state-owned airports.
No, just the Aurora State Airport.
Just
It's the only state airport with a air traffic control tower.
Okay. There are no further comments, questions from the board. Then I need a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the temporary rulemaking for violations and civil penalties for unauthorized access and vehicle pedestrian deviations at the Aurora State Airport.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Steve Nagy and a second from Brian Prang. And is there any further discussion?
Have we had sufficient opportunity for public comment on this decision that we're about to make?
We received several public comments in our email ahead of this meeting.
Just want to make sure that we are totally above board, not that we're not, and given an opportunity for the public to speak up. We're about to impose potentially significant penalties. So.
Sure.
Yes.
So I do want to clarify, this is a temporary rulemaking.
Yeah.
And so what that means is actually the agency does have obligations to give some notice, but it's not actually, the agency can give notice before, which it has, or actually not in this case. Or it can publish the rule after the board chooses to. If the board moves to adopt it today, then the rule can be published afterwards. This is a really different process than a permanent rulemaking, which requires a publication of the notice with the Secretary of State, and then an opportunity for people to review and provide written comments and then submit it to the board. So you have consideration. So I understand what you're asking, but the process that occurred, I think back in December, that doesn't exist for this rulemaking, but it will when staff comes back.
Sometimes I try to imagine what in our audience, what questions they might ask that we can also do as a board member to make sure that we are communicating clearly, to our constituents. But thank you for that.
And I just want just reiterate that in every PAM meeting, the Aurora stakeholder meeting every month, we've been talking about the topic of VPDs and the coming rulemaking as well.
Thank you.
So I can chime in on that as well, because I've been attending PAM meetings since 2012 when I became the mayor there. And this is heavily discussed, at the monthly meetings, and repetitively coming up with one set of arguments to kind of point fingers. But that has been clearly stated that, hey, this is really the way it's going to be with the FAA leaning in. So a lot of discussion for years, has been put into what's happening, including what the comments we had with the internal specification road, where I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on the state-owned property, we actually have the paved part of it there. It's the private properties that are not completing the process yet, complaining that it's not done. So we're heavily invested in the discussion of that idea. If we're not the ones holding it up. So, but yeah, a lot of discussion, years of discussion has been put into this. And I did take the training online. And although a little bit lengthy, in my opinion, it does make the points very, very clearly. But you do need to set aside an hour to get through this.
Trying to drill it into your head. Though.
Yeah, the big pictures are nice, with the big yellow attached. It's all there. So,
Right. Any further discussion? Right. I'll ask us to do the roll call.
Okay. Bill Grob,
aye.
Jim Knight,
Aye.
Sarah Lucas. Aye. Steve Nagy,
Aye.
Brian Prang, Jeff Pritchard's excused, and Catherine Stevens.
Aye. And that motion carries. All right. Thank you. And thanks to staff on that. I know you've been working on that a very long time.
Complicated.
And the work continues. It's not over.
It continues.
Yes, and so there was, just to make a comment, Chair, there were a lot of good recommendations, long-term solutions in some of the comments as well. And some of those take infrastructure and, whether you're talking vehicle service road or additional lighting or in pavement type of things, those are all great. But I really appreciate the staff's effort to take action now to address it, as well as work on long-term solutions and a long-term plan for this. And I appreciate the public comments about long-term solutions, but something needs to take place now.
I should have made one more comment that I want to acknowledge and appreciate. I know 2 property owners that have through the fence agreements that have invested money into redesigning their properties to mitigate that.
Yes.
And awesome. And we really want to appreciate that. And one's still ongoing. So we should appreciate those property owners that are investing to making their property designs better.
And encourage more.
Yeah.
Wherever necessary.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're doing really good work. So we need all the property owners to do that.
Yes.
Great.
All right. Very good. Okay. Then we'll move on to the state airport manager update with Tony.
Hey, pull up my other presentation here, and thank you, Bill, for those comments, because I also, in fact, we have a outreach press release that we're sending out here next week that also wants to call out the good work that those operators and private to address you, please. So thank you again for this one, because we face it. All right. Jumping in. This is the Oak Ridge State Airport, and we are going to be visiting this airport here in October. Thank you, Alexis. And can't wait to show you this airport. We're going to be starting our project here soon on reconstructing the runway. And I just wanted to highlight a few things. It is such a beautiful airport, but I wanted to highlight the good work that our staff have been doing on obstruction removal. And let's see, does anyone know where the windsock is?
Did you take it?
Well, it's there. You just can't quite see it. But on the left was the before, and on the right is the after of our staff getting in with our new equipment that we acquired with the use of SOAR funds, the forestry equipment that we're using to remove obstructions. And so that windsock, you can now see, not only can you see it in this corner here, you can see it from the ground, from the apron. And not only can you see it, but it actually moves with the wind. So,
Fancy.
right? So it's functional now, which is great. But really a huge safety improvement. It just shows the scale of the amount of obstructions that we have, and this is just one airport. So really getting some great use. Again, this is a new level of service with new equipment provided by the SOAR funding, which is based on the aviation fuel tax. And this is allowing us to get out to all of our airports and address the vegetation, not just trees, but brush as well, surrounding the airports, making them safer, removing obstructions in navigable use airspace. So we don't have a slow season anymore. From mowing and everything we do in the summer to now very busy with obstruction removal. And then just a quick update on just stuff that we have coming soon and work in progress. So the temporary rule we've discussed today, the permanent rulemaking starts now. And so we'll be filing a public notice and again, scheduling the hearing and there'll be opportunities to convene the rulemaking advisory committee as well as public comments before we bring that permanent rule back here to the board. We are also implementing very soon the driver's training portion. The training I mentioned earlier, this is the non-movement area training, or what we're referring to as the user and visitor safety training for the Aurora State Airport. That was published almost a year ago, and that's available for everybody. The movement area training is for the handful of operators at the airport that ODAV is going to grant authorization to enter that restricted area. And it just provides a little more information on how to operate within the taxiway and runway environment, making sure that they're safe and again, not causing vehicle and pedestrian deviations. And then that will be coming very soon. We also, again, have started discussions on authorization, what that means. That coincides with that movement training. Most people are not going to have authorization to enter the restricted areas. And in the last couple of months, I found I think a really good opportunity to discuss that more because I think we need to improve our understanding of what that really means. Finally, next month, I'm looking forward to bringing a SOAR overview. It's been a couple of years since we've talked a lot about SOAR, the outstanding projects we still have that are unfunded, what our current balance is looking like, the recent projects we've done, and what we have coming down in the future. And then giving you a little time to mull over that before we bring our request for future SOAR funding in April. And then we also have the through the fence rulemaking, that whole process that we've talked about from last year. So we've been working behind the scenes on coming up with not just a process, but also kind of a bunch of details that we're going to go into on creating through the fence rulemaking. So looking forward to having that conversation. And then I've also mentioned before about the volunteer program. And so we can't wait to get that established. And that is going to provide a lot more information to all of our communities that are really engaged and really care about all of the state airports, especially the ones in their local community. And we want to help work with them and facilitate the things they want to do at these airports, but make sure that we're doing it safely and consistent with any FAA requirements and other local requirements. So really looking forward to getting all these things in the works and brought here to the board. And then I'm not going to go into much detail here because Alex is going to do a deep dive into all the projects, but this is a carryover from the December presentation. Just look ahead at all of the projects we have coming out to the state airports this year. Mostly I wanted to point to this because I just wanted to remind everyone where you can get information and stay up to date with updates. And on our homepage at oregon.gov/aviation, click that subscribe to ODAP emails link, input your information. You can subscribe to any topic you choose. You can also manage, update your preferences, or unsubscribe at any time if you're getting too much. So please do sign up for that. And then finally, we want to hear from all of our users and pilots flying into our airports. We have set new signage out of the airports with a phone number that you can text. And we'd love to see your photos, hear about your visits. Please tell us about your trip. Let us know if there's something that we should be aware of, if there's any kind of safety issue or something that has come up unexpectedly. And especially for our rural airports, it helps us understand how our airports are being utilized. And I just can't explain enough how important that information is when we look at funding or doing projects, and it just helps us understand, what the use is, who's out here, and justify, all the work that we do behind the scenes to keeping these airports operating. So really, really helpful. And by the way, I don't have examples right now, but we have gotten some really great messages from people who have said, that the airport was vital during, I think we had at least one in-flight emergency. And I think another one had to divert from another airport due to weather, and our airport was available for them. So really, really helpful stuff. Okay, and then we've already talked a lot about vehicle pedestrian deviations. I did want to highlight that we have, knock on wood, had 0 since our last update in December of 2025. And then again, the topic was discussed in that September 2024 work session. And then just going over, this was all carryover from the December board meeting, but I do have a regular update, so I just wanted to keep it included. And of course, the corrective action plan that ODAF, in response to the FAA's letter, was to implement the movement portion of the training, complete the rulemaking on BPDs, and do some physical improvements with access control, wayfinding, and some other bigger projects identified in the airport master plan. Let's see, just another seasonal reminder that the Crescent Lake, McKenzie Bridge, San Junction, and Tokyo State airports are closed until May 1st. The windsocks are removed, and most of those are probably covered in snow. But no, we do get calls, and they're still closed until May 1st. And then just another reminder, despite it being 62 degrees yesterday, it is still winter, and so just a reminder of our winter conditions. Most airports, we don't report conditions, and we have very limited de-ice or plowing and no de-ice. So just a quick reminder on that, and that is my update.
Okay.
Hey,
Jay,
that's a record.
under top.
Any questions for Tony?
Want to jump in, not with a question, but I want to acknowledge Kenji and Tony's help in helping us put together a tour for the Wilsonville city government of UAO. Happened 2 weeks ago now.
Yep.
Thursday, we did a tour. The mayor and 2 city councilors and their government director liaison came with us and had some help with one of the property managers there. We did a very nice tour. We got to go through the tower. We went through Life Flight, HTS, and what's the name of the people renovating the DC-3s? Something Metals. Yeah, but it was very good. They were very appreciative. We had a lot of good comments afterwards, and I did run into the mayor on Tuesday at the Ways and Means Committee, and he was very thankful and happy that they had come. And so it was great. And just saying, we're keeping up the relationship with those cities around the UAO airport.
Great.
And of course, Bill's being modest, did most of the legwork getting that coordinated. So thank you, Bill. And it was a great meeting. Really appreciate it.
Brian.
Can some of the user submissions of airport use be used for communication and outreach by the department?
So like sharing photos or
People that have submitted, enjoying the airports or otherwise, stories of it.
is that something that, so we have taken other like social media posts and put them into our newsletter, but that's definitely something that we could.
Yeah, we just,
Sure, legal, like how that's used.
So what we do is when that information comes into us, that goes to someone and he reviews them.
Mhm.
He lets me know that, somebody sent in some photos and I will just have him ask permission. So we just send them back a
Right.
text that's like, hey, we love this image. We would really love to use it.
Sure.
And then they give us their permission. So it's in
Okay.
written form.
Awesome. But I've submitted photos, but there was no feedback loops. I wasn't sure what happened to them afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tony? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that update. And now on to core grants. So this is 2025 Cycle 9 core grant amendment request from the Medford Airport. And then also the 2026 Cycle 10 core grant approval. And Andrea's going to walk us through this.
Thank you, Chair Stevens, and good morning, Aviation Board. So we'll go ahead and we'll start off with Medford Airport's amendment request. And Amber Judd is available on the meeting if there are any questions by the board. And the reason why we're bringing this amendment request to the board is because this was originally approved as a Priority 1 grant, an FAA project, and it's no longer an FAA project. It was a couple pieces in the project have been split out. And so it would be moved to a Priority 2. So we just wanted to get the board's reapproval on this particular grant. And did you give Amber access?
I did give
Okay,
Amber
perfect.
access to her mic, yes.
So Amber, you should have access to your microphone and camera. If you wanted to just give a little summary of the project, and then you can have the board ask any questions if they have it.
Yes, of course. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Perfect.
Can you-
Thank you all for having us today and for considering our request. We had initially applied, on our plan was to put both of these as one project on our FAA grant in 2025. When the new grant language came out, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, our council would not let us execute those grants in conflict with state law. So we were forced to push that project a year to 2026. Part of that project was our new remain overnight parking aircraft, which is an enabling project for our terminal expansion. We didn't really feel like I could wait on that one because I don't want to push my terminal expansion off another year or two. So we pulled that out of, we uncombined the project, if you will. It's adjacent pavement to build the RON in 2025 with our own funding in preparation for the terminal expansion that we're currently designing, and then pushed the FAA grant, the AIP grant for our corporate apron to 2026. So we are just basically asking approval to amend our grant to just cover that remain overnight apron. And in 2026, our grant application, as you have seen, I'm sure, or will see today, is the corporate apron piece. So we just split it into 2 years. Happy to answer any questions you might have, and thanks for considering.
Did the ARC have this at the time? The ARC met?
The ARC did not review this request. No, we just brought it to the board.
So Andrew, tell us again, this pushes it into a Priority 2.
Correct, yes, because it no longer has FAA funding with it, and Medford is eligible to apply for the resiliency grants, the Priority 2s. And we just thought it would be better to put it there because they are eligible. And then that way, because all the Priority 3s were not funded last year, we didn't want to push it in there and then have to go through those again.
How does this overall impact then the rankings? If you put it into 2, where we have 2 projects currently, is it still allowed to be funding all of 2? And does that then impact 3?
Yes, yeah, it doesn't affect anything there because basically that funding is just taken out of Priority 1 status and moved into the Priority 2. So the issue would only be if we tried to put it into the Priority 3 applications where there were still some that hadn't been funded last year. And then looking at the rankings there. But if it goes into the priority 2, there's some of those issues.
Other questions? Board members?
How does it affect the category 3?
It doesn't have any effect on it because again, the amount of funding is not changing at all.
Okay.
It's just basically being moved from priority 1 to priority 2.
Okay.
So yeah, all the 3s are still the same as they were in the original approval.
We understand the shifting of the funding from priority 1 to priority 2. How does that project fit into the priority 2 criteria?
So we look at it as we don't have it projects defined for the priority 2. We have the airports that are eligible. So in that regard, that's why we're looking at it in this situation. Medford is eligible to apply under the priority 2s. Certainly pavement is important in regards to resiliency. So that's a big thing there. And so I think that's the main reason why it would fit into the category 2 resiliency.
I believe it only changes because it's not technically matching a federal aid.
Correct.
Into that.
Right.
And what's below priority 2 from the dark, so.
Right.
It
just
it's changing line item. Okay.
Any other questions on that, board members? Okay. Do we need to take action on that separately from?
Yes, yeah.
Great. So I will need a motion to amend the 2025 Cycle 9 Core Grant requests from Medford Airport to allow for their grant to, instead of being a federal match, to be a standalone project in priority 2.
Can I just say so moved?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Bill and a second from Jim. Any further discussion? Would you please conduct the roll call, Alexis?
Yes. Bill Gropp,
Aye.
Jim Knight,
Aye.
Sarah Lucas. Aye. Steve Nagy,
Aye.
Brian Prang,
Aye.
Jeff Pritchard's excused, and Catherine Smith.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that.
All right, and now we'll get to our main event, which is our 2026 Cycle 10 Core Grant approval. So let me just get my presentation here. All right. So really quickly, I always like to give just a little overview of our core grant program. So this was established by the legislature in 2015 legislative session and is funded by aviation fuel tax. The program is governed by ORS 319.023 and Oregon Administrative Rule 738-124. The grants are approved within 3 priorities, which are the priority 1, assist airports with match requirements for FAA grants. Priority 2, grants for emergency preparedness and infrastructure projects in accordance with the Oregon Aviation Plan or Oregon Resiliency Plan. And then priority 3, which are grants for critical essential services, airport development for local economic benefit, or aviation-related economic development. The first grant cycle was held in 2016 to 2017. There were 31 applications approved for 1.68 million. And since then, we have provided over 20 million in funding for 254 projects at 46 of the public use airports in Oregon. Currently, we have just about 100 of those projects currently in process or waiting to be executed. For this year's grant cycle, we had a total of 66 applications. The total project cost of those applications was almost $100 million. The funding request was a little over 5.8 million, and our available funding through the core program is at 3.5 million. We ran our grant cycle the same as we always do, starting with our application period in October, going through our internal review and ARC review processes. We are at our board approval today. And then, of course, after the approval, we start working with our grantees to execute those new agreements. With our Oregon administrative rules, we did some updates in 2025, and those were effective as of January 1st this year. One of the big changes had to do under the section for core grant funding, and that's 738-124-0040. When the program was established, ODAV also established a maximum grant amount of $150,000 per project. But there was a stipulation in the administrative rules that would allow applicants to apply for and the board to approve a higher amount than that. And in a few cycles, the board did approve some higher project amounts due to not needing to fund priority one applications for a few years. Because we have had an increase in applications, partly due to the bipartisan infrastructure law or BIL funds that are administered by the FAA, and of course, increase in project costs and inflation over the past few years, we decided to remove the allowing that extra amount to be applied for and cap our grants at $150,000. So all applications are now at that max 150, and nothing can be approved above that. In the future, if we're able to get, say, an increase in revenue to the program, we may look at increasing that cap as well. And then I just wanted to give a little bit of information on our Aviation Review Committee and the review that they did this year. So our ARC is comprised of one member from each area commission on transportation that are governed by ODOT. The core applications are reviewed and scored by the ARC, and that scoring is based on statutory criteria that was established by the legislature. And then once those applications are scored according to that criteria, the ARC breaks ties and prioritizes applications based on additional criteria, which was established in our Oregon administrative rules. And that criteria is applicants that can bear the most cost or the sponsor match to the core grants, projects that are related to safety and infrastructure, quantity of projects applied for at an airport within the same grant cycle, and the regional significance of the project and airport. Once the ARC has completed that, they present a list of recommended applications to the State Aviation Board for approval. Regarding the ARC process, this has remained consistent since the program's inception, with a single administrative modification that was implemented in 2022. And that modification was that we went from every ARC member filling out a scoring sheet for every single application. And instead, we have divided the ARC into cohort groups so that typically 2 to 3 ARC members review a section of the applications to score them, and then the full ARC, all 12 members, meet together to do the breaking of ties and prioritization of the projects. And that was mostly due to the amount of applications that we received. As mentioned, we only received and approved 31 in that first grant cycle. This cycle, we've had 66 applications. The past few, it's all been between 50 and 60. So as I mentioned, our cohorts consist of 2 to 3 ARC members who collectively evaluate a portion of the applications. Prior to cohort meetings, ARC members are required to submit conflict of interest forms. They are also prohibited from scoring applications that are from their own acts. And additionally, they are excluded from scoring applications for airports or projects where a conflict as defined in ORS 244.020 exists. And then finally, along with our administrative rule updates, we also updated the State Aviation Board approval process. So we did not change the allowable approval for the board. So that was same as it always has been since the program was created. But we created a process whereby the board will document their approval if it is different from what the ARC recommendation is. And this came about because, of course, last year's approval by the board was different from what the ARC had recommended. And then we also updated the administrative rules to reflect the criteria used by the board to approve the applications. Again, this didn't change, but it wasn't explicitly spelled out in the rule. And that is the same criteria that the ARC uses. And that just provides greater clarity, transparency in the board approval process and aligns the ARC and board review with that criteria. All right. So with all of that, I wanted to turn it over to Shelley Humble, our Aviation Review Committee Chair, and she will just give a little bit of information on the ARC review and how the ARC came to their recommendation.
Thank you for having me. We really appreciate the board members taking the time to review this and to continue this process. This process is very important. And has been, as you see, all the continued applications and the projects that are being funded, especially for the smaller general aviation airports that have no other ability to have grant funding to keep up with the infrastructure. It is just vital important for those small airports, and I am one of them. And just to start off, for transparency, because I seem to be in the hot seat a lot, I am the airport manager for the city of Crestwell. I am the Lane Act member for the ARC, but my husband also has an aircraft maintenance business on the field. He's been there longer than I have, but just so for transparency, so there could be a perceived conflict of interest. However, there is none. And I did not vote on any of the Crestwell projects. That being said, I know the ARC members did have some concern again, and it's really hard because priority one is mandated to be funded via the ARC. In other words, we can't say we choose not to fund a priority one. Our guidelines are that we just break the ties. We do that. We can offer suggestions or comments and concerns to the board. And we are doing that this year just for the larger number of grants for single airports. We do understand that priority one is important for infrastructure. However, we want to make sure that all the smaller airports have the ability. And priority one right now is getting kind of a bum rap because we do have the IIJA money or the bill money, whichever way you want to call it. We have one more year that's coming out, but for the smaller airports, it is, if not the only way, one of the only ways for them to be able to afford to get infrastructure on those airports. And we all know in aviation how important all our airports are to the transportation system, to the emergency systems, to fire. There are so many reasons that we need to keep small GA airports open, but unfortunately there's no funding mechanisms there for the most part to keep the infrastructure. So having that IIJA money available for the smaller airports to do pavement, to do hangar construction, to do these infrastructure programs that they wouldn't be able to do, it is vitally important. So yeah, we will see priority one still continue to be heavy on that application ask because of that IIJA/bill money. We have this year, 26, I think is the last year that it will come out, and then you have up to 3 years to utilize it. So after that, we will see a major drop in that amount of money. I don't want to see another COVID to have another FAA gift like that, but it is important that we fund those as much as possible. And then again, I would love to get the word out for more of the airports that can. The resiliency is another thing that should be top priority for everybody and for all the airports. Should we have a disaster, we need all the rural hubs to help with that disaster to make sure that people have what they need during a disaster. I'm sure you guys will be looking at all the airports with the number of grants for each priority. We would also, all of the ARC would also love to be able to fund everything, fund all the priority three, but they're just as important as a priority one and priority two. The only difference is priority one, it's 10 cents on the dollar. So it's really hard not to be able to utilize that amount of money and spread it over more airports. I believe that really is my soapbox. I am here to answer any questions if you have. Otherwise, we have a great group. We really appreciate ODF staff. I can't get used to that staff. And for all their work that they do for us, they really help the ARC with their process. It's a joy to be on it.
Thank you, Shelley. And I just want to thank you for your service on the ARC as well. I think you've been representing aviation very well on the ARC for many years. So thank you for that. So just to be clear, so the spreadsheet we received with all of the applicants, so that is the ARC ranking, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the ability as the board to review this and reshuffle as we see fit, as we did last year, to spread the funding out further. So I'm going to just take some board chair license here and express a little frustration. And I realize that there's some disconnect between the process the ARC uses and the process that we use here as the Oregon Aviation Board. But when I go through and I see multiple grants for different airports, and we've been very clear that we are setting the max at 150, and I can see that some of the airports adhered to that. And even if they had multiple grants, it's still falling under the 150. But then when I see, I'll call it out, the Redmond Airport with multiple grant applications that are clearly the same project, they've just broken it apart in phases, and then asking for 3 grants of 150 and another one of 43, I'm frustrated. That's not what I believe is the intent of this body in administering these grant funds. So I will just leave it there. Steve?
Yeah, there was a similar question to what I was going to have, and I don't know if this, I'm assuming this doesn't go to the ARC, but goes more towards the staff. As part of the criteria that can be accepted, I mean, the ARC obviously looks at it based on the criteria of that, but from a staff perspective, for each one of these because there's other airports that have 2 grant applications, but it's pretty obvious maybe that or it should be pretty obvious based on their title, that they are separate projects, and probably, I'm assuming, though I'm not sure that we check, are bid separately so that they are completely separated. I would have real questions about phase 3, 4, 5, and 6 if they are bid as separate. If they are bid as separate projects, then they may be bid as separate projects. But if they are bid as one major project with a major total of the project totals, that's just kind of, as the chair said, kind of gaming the system by breaking. Unless you can demonstrate that you have 4 or 5 separate bid packages and you are asking for grant application matches for 4 or 5 bid packages, I'd be very concerned about that type of application. And so my question is, do we verify if those are in fact 4 separate bid packages, or do we take just the information that the applicant provides us?
With the priority ones, we look at it as how their FAA grants are phased. And so we did verify with Redmond, they actually have a separate FAA grant for each of those. So that's why they were allowed to have those separate applications. So we've never made a rule or stipulation that it is based on bid packages. For the priority ones, it's been based on how the FAA slices up the project.
So between the applicant and the staff, does the applicant bring these ideas to the staff as well? Well, if we broke up our projects into different categories, this is totally outside of the staff's domain. It's good to hear. So Shelley, must have been conversation about this very topic. And
There was a lot of conversation. There was definite concern from the ARC members that this specific airport not only they do have all the FAA, and we did confirm that they all have separate FAA grants for each project. However, they also have other funding options available. I think they just realized that the core grant may have been an easier route to get some of that funding. However, it was very concerning, and it was concerning for the ARC members that we can express our concern, but we really can't move them down in the ranking. We have to look at their scores and then look at the tie. That is, and we believe that you guys will do what's right. But it was very concerning that there were so many grants for one airport, especially after what was decided last year. Because it's not there to give all the grants to one airport. It's there to help all airports in Oregon. So even though our priority ones, most are funded, and people understand that, but it shouldn't be abused.
And I guess I would just add that, the Eugene Airport could have applied for multiple grants. Medford could have applied for multiple grants. And we did not, because our understanding was you apply for one grant at the max of 150.
Isn't that the way we stated the rule though?
I believe that's how we
That's what I
intended
thought
to state the rule.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm a little perplexed, actually. So we can reshuffle this, but we also should then look again at how we're presenting that grant application opportunity. Because if we're not being clear, we probably need to be clear if that's our intention.
So did you as staff anticipate the possibility that the board would say, hold on a second, that we would rather potentially move those grant dollars from an airport that has multiple grants so that category 3 grants could be funded, and what would be the implications to doing that?
Yep. Actually, Jim, we have a kind of a flow chart of how to do that, which is basically what we did ad hoc last year. But now we have a more formalized way to do it. So we could have the discussion. And I think maybe there's a couple of things to slice and dice here, because there are other airports that have multiple applications, but they fell below the 150 designation. So yeah, for the airport. So then, that's kind of one issue. Do we allow more than one grant as long as it's below the 150 threshold? And then do we then look at what we are able to fund? If we only allow 150 per airport, what else are we able to fund? And from my estimation, we get at least 2.5 more projects down on the priority 3 list.
Never mind, you just said what I was going to say.
Okay.
Hi, Chair, I agree with all of them. I would just make sure that if we are to reprioritize, that we can justify the criteria under the criteria that we had previously established. And I guess that we would ask staff if they felt that type of what we're about to do fits within the criteria that you had established for reprioritizing.
One of the criteria that we specifically made sure to call out in there is taking into consideration an applicant that has multiple applications.
So Andrea, remind me, because I just really feel like we tried desperately to address this last year. That it could be multiple grant applications for one airport, but it needed to fall within a total of the 150 threshold. And I didn't think we were allowing multiple grants that were then above the 150 threshold.
So the individual applications can't be for over 150,000, but we didn't change in the rule that it could be 150,000 per project. And so then it goes towards, again, the phased projects in the priority one, like with Redmond. Our rules consider those each separate projects, so they would be eligible to apply for up to 150,000 for each of them.
Part of that also goes to that they do have separate FAA grants.
Right.
For each
Right.
So
Right.
limited. And
so then it ultimately becomes the aviation board's discretion to be able to sort that. because I think probably the intention was some of these smaller airports may not have a big project that needs 150 match, but could use like a 43, like we've seen in some of these other one, a couple of smaller matches that then stay below the 150 threshold.
And if I may add, it's very similar to Benny Benson's comments out of that he had provided.
Right.
So on my little screen, I can't see the whole, there's a lot of priority ones, but are we saying that there's only one airport that is in question based on this criteria that we're questioning?
Well,
You know that
there's a couple of things. So we've got some airports, like Astoria has 2 grants, but they're below, combine the
I get
grant matches is below.
in what we're saying, which is you
Is
have multiple grants over 150. There's only one airport that
Correct.
meets that criteria.
That's
I don't want to look like we're biased.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's
I
only one.
think there might be another.
Is there another?
That's why I can't see everything.
This is why I think if we did this, I would want to have staff review
Yeah.
all the applications and see if anybody whom is over that.
Who's the other one?
Southwest Oregon.
Oh,
They have a 126 and a 28, and that goes above
okay. Yeah.
150.
Yes.
And just, I don't remember having the 150,000, the threshold, yes, 150,000. But I don't remember
Cumulative.
the verbiage saying only one per airport, and maybe that, because it was frustrating for the ARC. Yeah.
Well, that's what we did in practice last year, but maybe
That's exactly what you did, because I had 3 resiliency and they all equaled 150,000. So, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think the ARC members would be happy with that, so that we could spread the wealth.
yeah. And Andrea, remind me, can we partially fund a grant then? So say for this example that Steve did better math than I did, the Southwest Regional Airport, we could just split that 150 up between the 2 grants.
That was just my quick look.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any others.
I
There are
scanned
a
it
couple
pretty
of
well.
others.
I don't think so, unless Andrea, do you know of any others?
Not any that go over 150,000 combined.
Okay.
Okay.
So then that actually does get us, I think
Well,
I
into
think it
3
gets
or
us
4.
Burns also down on the priority 3.
Well into the.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
just in order, the scoring, we're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
moving the line down on priority
Exactly.
3.
Sure. Last year, did we allow staff to work with the applicant on a split to decide how they wanted to
Yes.
between the
Yes.
two?
Mhm.
Sure, Stevens, can I?
Yes.
I'm not gonna call out which specific airports by name, but I will say the last couple of years, we have been approached, unfortunately, the state has, by more and more airports that are considering whether or not they will remain open as an airport. So I'll just leave it at that without naming which airports they are. Well, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, that's as you consider going further into the priority 3s, it would. potentially-
Yeah, and so are you suggesting, Alex, that we should look at a reprioritization of the priority 3s, or
No,
just getting down further into the priority 3s?
yes.
It's easier.
Yeah, that's easier.
Is that part of the scoring system for staff that, if we don't get pavement maintenance, this airport just won't exist anymore?
No, no. It's a very complex scenario. Every airport's
Not a
different.
factor in that.
No. And as Andrea pointed out, and the ARC has pointed out, I mean, we do have statute, of course, that we have to follow in our rules. And so there's not a lot we can do to help them. And
No, it's more curiosity. I'm not asking for a change. I just want to understand how the data gets, evaluated.
So could we summarize how we go about resolving this very issue? What's the appropriate way that doesn't violate our existing rules?
Sure. So Alexis provided me with this Very detailed.
Oh, that was Andrea.
It was
All
Andrea. It was all Andrea. Okay.
All Andrea.
And Andrea, was this all sent to every board member? Am I just the lucky one?
I just sent it to you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Then I'm gonna just read this so that we all are on the same page, if that's okay. It's probably the easiest way to do this. So the board may award grants at reduced funding levels based on considerations such as reasonable distribution of grant funds and potential for economic or community impact and overall objectives of the grant program. Cites an OAR. And then applications shall be prioritized as follows. Priority 1 is to assist with the FAA match requirements. Priority 2, applications for emergency preparedness and infrastructure projects in accordance with the Oregon Resilience Plan or Oregon Aviation Plan. And then priority 3, applications for services critical or essential to aviation, including but not limited to fuel, sewer, water, weather equipment, or aviation-related business development, including but not limited to hangars, parking for business aircraft, related facilities, or airport development for local economic benefit, including but not limited to signage and marketing or assisting commercial service to rural Oregon. And then the board may also reprioritize one or more applications based on the following factors. Factors used by the ARC found in the ORS to score core grant applications, and additional prioritization factors used by the ARC found in a different OAR. So the approval process is if the board decides to reprioritize applications or reduce funding levels, they will complete the core grant approval justification form to document the factors used to determine the approval of the grant funding. Here's the form. It is, let's see. If the application is awarded at reduced funding level, provide justification according to the OAR. And this is the citation. The board reserves the discretion to allocate available grant funds in a manner that maximizes impact and accessibility. The board may award grants at reduced funding levels based on considerations such as reasonable distribution of available grant funds, the potential for economic and community impact, and the overall objectives of the grant program. And so then we enter our justification of why we are reducing a funding level and or not approving one of the priority 1 grants, essentially. And then if applicable, if the application is reprioritized, provide justification based on factors found in an ORS and an OAR, which is proposed project reduces transportation costs or improves access to jobs and sources of labor in this state. Proposed project results in an economic benefit. The proposed project results in an economic benefit to the state. Proposed project connects elements of Oregon's aviation system in a way that will measurably improve the utilization and efficiency of the system. And proposed project is
Be ready.
ready for construction or implementation. And the proposed project has a useful life expectancy that offers maximum benefit to the state. And the amount of project costs borne by the applicant from sources other than ODAV or Connect Oregon can also be considered. And then in addition to that, projects that are related to safety or infrastructure, quantity of projects applied for at a single airport within the same grant cycle, and regional significance. And then we just add our comments of why we are making the decisions we are making.
Wow. There's a lot to do in one meeting.
Yeah, although I think we can do this because I feel like we're all on the same page here, unless I hear any opposing views or alternate views. Yeah, Sarah, I don't know if you have anything to add. I'm going to propose that we reshuffle some stuff. Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah.
I just wanted to add, sorry, my camera's not working today, and I agree with everything that you all are saying about the spirit and intent of the core program, and I fully support readdressing this issue.
Okay, thank you for that. So, given the OAR 738-124-0060 5, quantity of projects applied for at a single airport within the same grant cycle. That's essentially what we're talking about. And I think we're also talking about the overall intent of the program and then the grant funds available. So, Andrea, do you want me to give it to you on the fly and you can shuffle and see where we get?
I've got my spreadsheet up here, so.
I'm looking at the top 5 underneath the line. 3 of them are burns, but they're way under the 150,000.
Yeah, and I don't think we're even getting that far down, just for my
So
math, but
they
maybe
would
Steve
choose-
should do
they
math
could
instead of
choose
me.
Which ones?
Well, so I think what we need to do, if you will,
Sorry, I'm
favor
jumping
me,
ahead.
that's okay.
Well, Chair,
Mhm.
I think actually, the ARC gave us a series of recommended priority 3s here.
Mhm.
If we were to dip down below the line, their recommended priorities based on not just that are on the list here, but on specific needs. And they are pretty much around obstruction removal, pavement
Okay.
maintenance, fuel system repair. I mean, they've given us a nice pathway
Mhm.
for where to use other funds if we reallocate. And that would be, I think, very much in the spirit and intent of what the ARC was intending.
So let me clean up the blue section and then you can clean up the orange section. So Andrea, we would,
How do we avoid this in the future?
and that, I think that's our next
Yeah,
discussion.
absolutely.
Yeah. So Andrea, I would say we need to take Florence's projects. And I believe they're both under 150, so they can stand. Okay. And the Port of Astoria projects, I believe are also both under the 150 threshold, so they can stand. And the next on the list are the set of Redmond Airport projects. And I guess the logical way to go to that would be to go to the phase 3 project and fully funded at 150. And then drop the other 3 projects into the unfunded list. Well, priority 3, but the lower bottom of the list, basically. Right.
Quick question on the phases of the Redmond. When were these phases intended to go into effect, to begin to work on? I mean, phase 3,
Well,
6,
so
these are
it's
future.
one project, but they have multiple federal grants. And so that is what their interpretation was, that because they were individual federal grants, that they could apply for a matching fund for each of them.
So again, couldn't they request funding that in the next
Cycles. Yep, absolutely.
And all of those phases have already started. They started last summer. So the work is all going concurrently.
But I don't think it precludes them from being able to apply in the next cycle.
As long as the project isn't complete before the application period, yes.
Because we have more flexibility with the core grants, like the FAA grants that have rules about when you can start a project. But core, as long as it's not completed, right, you can get the.
And as long as their FAA grant has been applied for and they're working on it, so it really goes back to when the FAA grant.
And so then the last piece on the blue section, I believe, is the Southwest Oregon Regional Airport projects. And I would say they have 2 projects. We cap them at 150, and then you work with the applicant to determine how they would like that.
It looks like they're only about
It's close.
6 or so thousand.
Or would it be appropriate to give the same consideration to Redmond, depending on how that would affect their funding? So instead of saying
Yeah.
phase X, they can choose which
Yeah.
one it's applied to,
Totally fine.
or split it between
Or
several.
25 on each one or something.
They're capped at 150, and they can work to make sure that they can arrange their grant funding
Yeah.
appropriately.
And I don't know that administratively the best way to do that. Maybe you name it just as one project and then they can determine how they want to apply it.
Yeah, we'll just reach out and work with them and see how they want to do it, just like we did with last year's.
Green section, we know that Medford got put into the green section and that's also fully funded. And so then that leaves us.
Well, and that was last year. That was a 2025. So yeah, it's not a part of this one.
Okay. The top of the orange section that was funded, so Twin Oaks, George Belt, and Sisters. We can have a discussion about those, but I would tend to stick with that recommendation.
I agree.
Do you want to?
Oh, thank you. That's on
This
this you want us to
proposal,
do that?
Well,
how
I-
we consider priority threes.
And so I would ask
The nine.
procedural thing, since we have a member of the ARC here, they gave us recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Make sure that whatever we do is in line with whatever was written here on the paper. And what I'm reading that's as kind of the direction that was recommended to us is, it looks like the application 00038 for Twin Oaks, which on here is,
It's in the top.
it's in the top three. Okay, then the next one comes down to both applications for City of Burns,
And
005 and 0068.
Steve, really quickly, so I did already prioritize them according to how the ARC broke the ties. So the way they're listed on the spreadsheet is already the way that the ARC one.
The
okay.
input.
Oh, great.
But then are you sure? Because it says here, okay. And
That's what
Are you ready?
these were tie-breaking ones. Okay, never mind. These were tie-breaking ones. Okay, so these are as per how they were recommended. Okay,
So we just have to know how far the line moves down
Mhm.
on
right.
the spreadsheet that we're looking at right now.
So it looks like Burns, because there's two for Burns below as well, and they both are.
Right.
And it says that the one at the bottom of the page, 068, fuel equipment storage phase one. In the notes at the bottom of that, that says this is their second ranked priority 3 project. So,
I think we get to the three listed first under the unfunded applications, but I think someone's gonna have to do the spreadsheet math on that.
yeah,
Yeah, so with doing just 150,000 for Redmond and for Coos County, that funds down through Columbia Gorges application 42. And that puts us at about 3.4 million. So it leaves about 100,000 available.
Can we
All three Burns projects.
partially fund the first Burns project then?
Yeah, you can recommend that. And then, yeah, we can say that it's funded up to this amount and they can accept it if they have the additional.
Was that what you were thinking, Bill?
Oh, sorry, I mixed my columns up. It's kind of hard on a small
Yeah.
screen here,
Yeah.
so. All right, so my bad. Yeah, I'm with you now. Yes.
Kelly?
Now, at a point, and I mean, it's more of a staff question, if more funds become available because the projects take less money, would that automatically be
Move down the list.
offered to Burns to finish?
Yeah, if we have a cancellation, and so like that's what happened with Astoria last year, there was a cancellation, so we were able to fund theirs. They were the next on under the cut line. So yeah, we would do that.
What's below the Burns, the 3 Burns?
It's another Burns.
Well, no, below the
There's two
three
more
Burns
below
is
It's
Sportsman.
an airport.
Westman's, yeah.
So just
Which is
devil's
also over
advocate, how are
100,000.
we playing the 3 Burns projects?
Well,
Only
we're not
one.
funding all
Only
of
one.
them.
One. They've only done
One.
one.
Their top ranked one.
That leaves a little money left over.
No.
No, we
Oh, I thought
short,
Shouldn't with a
actually
little
shorts
short.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that allows in priority 3 to fund projects at 6 separate smaller airports.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With one of Burns projects. Yeah.
What partial?
Partial.
Yeah,
Almost
almost.
95%.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, it'd be great if staff could look and see if we can squeeze it out there too to fully fund it.
Not a million.
Yeah.
Too many zeros.
I squeeze that too, a little.
Okay. We can cut board pay.
Yeah, there we go.
Get your raises, you're not getting.
See, now it's the bill. I have to say, the board does not get paid.
It's for the
That's
record.
for the record.
Volunteer.
This is really good. I would say from the very beginning of the core, this is the greatest frustration is that we would see these really important projects go unaddressed because there's simply no funding. And I think it's our highest priority as a board to do our best to try to find ways to solve that issue. This is a really good way of doing it.
And you're right, Jim, we need to memorialize this in obviously in a better way in our application process. So, because I don't see us varying from this intention to make sure that we're getting some of the little guys funded as well. Kelly?
I think doing that, it puts the choice on the airports. So you're not trying to figure out which is their favorite project or which is their most important. If they know that they can only apply for 150,000 in priority one, then they're going to put the one that they really want in.
Yep.
So I think that's a really good move.
And to add, maybe it's moot for this conversation, but we'd probably be closer to 100 applications. We know a lot of airports just don't apply because they recognize it's going to be in priority 3 and the chance of it getting funded is very slim. So
Right.
a lot of airports have stated that. I wouldn't be surprised if 100 it would be a closer application count if more airports were applying for those 3s that they
That would be great. We need to see what these needs are. So
Yeah, and it's not because they don't want the funds or they think it's too much effort. It actually is a lot of effort, especially if you've got, one airport manager trying to do all the grant management and everything else. Yeah, Shelley, I know you can relate.
In a couple instances, we have a single airport manager for multiple airports. So, yeah.
Right, so Andrea, how are we? Do we need to do anything else for you? I know we will.
Need to invent a motion.
Yeah. So we need a review, make sure we've captured everything.
So I can update here.
And then I get to fill out the form.
Andrew, you need a little time.
I'm not sure I can.
Yeah, I can update these really
I'm trying
quickly
to
here.
Right in my head, a motion out here. Right.
I can help you out here. I do want to walk through the spreadsheet again with Andrea just to make sure we captured it all.
Stacy, do you have any concerns on this process that we're willing away at?
No, I just want to make sure that the motions that were just put up are not the motion that you use.
Right.
Which you.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
said.
looking at it.
Yeah. I'm amending those right now. So for the priority ones, then you want to do it as last year where it's basically 150,000 per airport is.
That would be, so each of the Redmond ones, so I understand, would just, all 4 would be approved, but at the smaller amount. Not the
Total. Yep, and they can market it the way they want.
Yeah, okay,
Or if they want to do one and not the other 3.
sure.
And everything we're talking about here is in alignment with kind of what the ARC was talking about, right?
Yeah.
And this is, I believe, very similar to what the outcome was last year. We've just a more formalized documentation of how this is.
So much. I just want to make sure with the ARC was kind of in line with this too.
Yes.
Because that's what happened.
That was our hope, that you would take the lead and do this because our ability in the ARC does not give us the option to not fund. We just get to approve and put them in ranking.
Actually, Chair, would there be a way to maybe take a break and then I can work with staff to figure out not
Sure.
just the motion language, but to make sure that we document this correctly?
Yes.
Should we do this after lunch
Absolutely.
then?
Which,
We can table this till after lunch.
yeah, are we good with that, Alexa?
We have not received our lunch
Oh,
yet.
we still have the finance update.
Yeah, although I don't want to
We can
distract
table
from
this and take
this.
the findings. Okay. Is that reasonable?
I'm sorry, what?
We can table this till after lunch. and do
Absolutely.
the finance update.
When are we?
We come back to this. While you guys do.
Yeah, about noon. So.
Okay.
I think we know what we want to do.
We do, I think that there's just
Just
some
making a legal.
administrative stuff
proper
that
motion.
has to happen here. So,
Yeah.
so if you're comfortable with that, we can go to the finance report and then we'll take our lunch break, get our administrative work done and then come back. Okay.
Ooh, that's the right.
Yes. So yes, we will go with the finance manager update.
Okay, so for you today, I have the 2025 annual report. And so just a little background on the annual report. It's required by statute that we put this together for the board. In the past, we used to just put together a written report and send it to the board. The last few years, we've changed it to more of a snapshot, easier to read, added pictures. And then that way we can also use it as a communication tool to show the public and our stakeholders what we've accomplished over the year. And Alexis designed the report for us this year. So here's what it looks like. In the report, we have about the department, the director's statement. We have a couple pages for the board, benefits of aviation in Oregon, the 2025 financial report, the programs and 2025 projects, key performance measures, and then our information. And then we have Aurora State featured here in that picture. So in the About Us, one of the big things that happened in 2025 is we did our new strategic plan. So we wanted to feature that in our annual report. So our new mission is the Oregon Department of Aviation enables and advocates for a safe and efficient aviation system that connects communities and drives economic growth. And then we have our new vision. So safety and operational excellence, integrity and accountability, sustainability and stewardship, collaboration and partnership, and education and advocacy. And then for the director's statement, Kenji just summarized some of the accomplishments for the year. And so he really focused on how we focused on communication over 2025. So we started the newsletter again, did a new website. We've really focused on social media. And we changed our customer service survey so that we could get more feedback. Then Kenji also touches on some of the projects, but I'll go over those later on in the report. And he also talks about the safety and maintenance improvements at our airports. So we repainted 27 airports. We have new PAPIs planned for Independence, a waterline project at Milano, and we have adjusted the CPI for our leases. And then these couple of pages are all about the aviation board. So we got pictures for everyone this year. I think this is the first time we had everyone's picture, so that's nice. And then on the right, we summarized what the board accomplished over 2025. So in February, the board approved the ASAP core grants. In March, the Through the Fence rule and policy was evaluated. In April, in Astoria, we approved the 2025 PMP program. And then let's see, I'll skip to July. We had a strategic planning update. We launched the website, talked about special session. We approved the change to the Prospect Airport SOAR project. In August, in Hood River, the board approved ASAP, report to legislator. They approved the PMP policy. You approved the Enterprise Airport Core Grant modification. And then in September, there was the Aurora Master Plan update. In October, the board approved the strategic plan and also approved the 25-27 LAB. In November, the board adopted OAR 738-124. And during the executive session, or after the executive session, the board approved the aviation easements at Joseph, Milano, Aurora, and Chiloquin. And then in December, the board approved the ARC members and reviewed the annual performance report, the key performance measures, and the best sport practice survey. So a lot accomplished in 1 year, let's say. The next couple pages are just the numbers snapshot. So on the left, it's the aviation benefits in Oregon. So these numbers were derived from the Oregon Aviation Plan. So next time we update the plan, we'll have new numbers for this to share. But based on the last numbers we gathered, there's a $29 billion economic benefit based on the aviation industry in Oregon. 78 cities where Oregon aviation businesses are located, over 300 aviation companies in Oregon, over 117,000 aviation jobs in Oregon. And on the right is more of a snapshot of our agency. So we completed 700 tall tower evaluations in 2025. So that's all Brandon, our planner, did all of those. Of course, we have 28 airports owned by the state, almost 4,000 aircraft that are registered by the department every year, over 1,000 public use drones that are registered every year, 66 paid public use airports served by the PMP program, 96 airports and heliports, and then a staff of 50. So the next pages are just a snapshot of the financial report for 25. So fiscal year 25 was the second half of the 23-25 budget. So all of these numbers are from that budget. The budget was 48.5 million for the 2 years. And on the left, you can see how that's broken down into our different programs. So ASAP, 14.7 million, capital construction, 12.5 million, operations, and these are all other funds and federal funds combined, over 9 million. General aviation entitlement projects, 7.2 million. Airport projects, and that was actually specifically for the Cape Longo runway project, so it was 2.4 million. And the pavement maintenance program, 2.2 million, and then aircraft registration is only 193,000 for expenditures. Then we also highlighted a few numbers for the budget. So the last fuel tax increase for operations was prior to 1955. Our aircraft registration brings in almost 400,000 per year, and we do a lot with that money. So it is used for airport operations, and it's also used for FAA grant match. And then 43% of our budget comes from fuel tax, and then our operating budget is about $3.1 million per year. So that is for, and that's all other funds, and that is for operations of the agency and of the 28 airports. Now here's a little snapshot of the programs and projects for 2025. So operations broken down into 4 programs: statewide services, planning, airport operations, and airport maintenance. And then aircraft registration, I touched on a little bit already, funds, airport maintenance, and the grant match. The pavement maintenance program. So it serves the 66 paved public use airports in Oregon. So in 2025, design took place in Region 2 and construction was completed in Region 1 and Region 4. So there was 13 airports that were completed, and the annual budget is about 1.1 million for PMP. And we also list what airports were served in 2025. So Seaside, Toledo, Starks Twin Oaks, McMinnville, Malino, Hood River, Troutdale, and Salem. And in Region 4, Baker City, Union County, LeGrand, Grant County, and Joseph. Okay, and then more on our projects. So for our capital construction projects, these were all of our larger projects that we completed in 2025, or I wouldn't say completed, but they were ongoing in 2025. Many of them take more than a year with planning and construction. So in 2025, there was a Cape Blanco runway rehab, Cottage Grove apron rehab, Sleds Bay runway electric rehab, and the Aurora State runway rehab. And the budget for all of those was $12.6 million. And then we featured a picture of the Aurora State Airport runway rehab there. And then for general aviation entitlement, so these are all of our smaller projects. We actually had a lot of projects in 2025. So we had a lot of grants and a lot of projects. We have a picture there of Cottage Grove State Airport. And in 2025, we did work on the Aurora State Master Plan, as we know, Aurora Runway Rehab Design, Aurora Surface Steel Construction, Bandon State Airport Runway and Taxiway Surface Steel, Chiloquin Obstruction Removal, Cottage Grove Runway and Taxiway Surface Seal, Independence Taxiway and Taxi Lane Surface Seal, Lebanon Runway and Taxiway Surface Seal Design, McDermott Runway Surface Seal, Malino Runway Taxiway, Taxi Lane and Apron Surface Seal Design, Joseph Pavement Surface Rehab Design, Joseph Obstruction Removal. So like I said, a lot of projects in 2025, total project cost about 1.4 million for those. Okay, and ASAP, we wanted to give a snapshot of ASAP as well. So for Some of the main projects in 2025 were the Prospect Runway Rehab. So we featured Prospect there on the left, Cape Blanco Runway Rehab Match, and the Pacific City Flood Development Plan. Cycle 5 project costs were 1.4 million. And then core, there was 51 grants awarded in 2025, almost $4 million. And we featured 3 of the core projects there. So you can see the pictures. The first one is Crook County Prineville T-Hanger Project. So that received a $250,000 core grant. The rest was funded by FAA, and they added 10 new T-hangers there. The Columbia George Regional Airport new GA aircraft fuel apron. And so that was a priority 1 funded project. And it added approximately 2,000 square feet of new asphalt apron pavement markings and storm drainage improvements so that they could reallocate the self-serve fueling system. And out of pure priority 3, we featured the Ontario Airport perimeter fence and access gate. And so they installed a new chain link perimeter fence and an automated vehicle access gate at the Ontario Airport. The next couple pages are for the key performance measures. And I did go over those in detail at a board meeting a couple months ago. So I won't go over those in detail, but they are in the report, and the report is available online. If you wanted to look at those in more detail. And then the last page, we feature Slits Bay State Airport, and it's just our contact information. And that's the report. Like I said, Alexis did a really good job of putting that together for us, making it look nice. Did you have any questions about anything?
Great information. And yeah, I agree, Alexis. You did a great job. It looks beautiful. So is that in a format that's downloadable anywhere? Is it on our website or?
Yes, it is on our website. So currently right now it's on, it should be on the About Us page at the bottom, where our strategic plan is also located, but it's also under our February board meeting as well. So you can see the annual report there.
Okay, perfect. Any questions, comments?
Great summary.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. And I think we are ready to take our lunch break and then what time do we want to say? Do we need a little extra time so we can work through this administrative stuff for core? Do you want to say 12:45 or do you want longer?
How long will it take you?
I mean, I think it should probably be okay by 12:45.
Okay, we'll say 12:45. All right, great, very good.
Just, I have to leave at 1:30.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
And okay, we are ready to come back if you are.
Okay, great. We are back and we are coming back around to the core grants decision that we need to make. And we worked on some reshuffling. And so I guess we can should we talk about each of these changes first, or do we want to approve things first?
So maybe what Andrea can do is put up on the screen, she can put the spreadsheet of where everything lies. So you
Yeah.
can see where they are and what they approved. So you'll know what you're approving
Mhm.
in terms of what grant applications you're approving. So you're approving a certain number of them.
Mhm.
And then you can talk about the
The
amount,
allocation.
the allocation.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, so essentially, Andrea, we kept the prioritization the same all the way through priority 1, priority 2, and then priority 3 now has. Can we approve that if we haven't put that cap on it first?
You can, but we'll do it one at a time. So essentially what you're doing, I mean, what I think you're doing until you make a motion, you haven't actually done this, but what you're doing is you are actually approving the priority based on ARC's recommendations. So now I understand with those motions that you're still doing that. So you could ultimately, what you could do is you make a motion to approve the grant applications as recommended by ARC. And we changed up some suggested motions, with the exception that for example, for all the grant applications that were submitted by Redmond, you'd like to add a cap of 150,000 max per airport. And so with the new change in the rules, what you want to do is justify that. And so Andrea provided you with a form that helps you do that, identify what the grant numbers are. And the rule provides a basis for actually making that reallocation. And you'll see it when the form comes up. And so if the board as a group could talk about why it is, if you decide that you want to put that cap on it and reallocate it, why it is that you want to do that. And then Andrea will type that in for you and you'll see it on the board. So
One correction, it's Redmond and Southwest Regional, both, right?
Southern Oregon Regional.
So Southern Oregon, so it's Redmond and Southern. Oregon.
Correct.
yeah, I was just using Redmond as
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
right, just make sure.
yeah, so here it is. Here's the justification up. So you'll see that is a subsection of one of your new rules. And that talks very specifically about reallocation. And so in order to reallocate, the rule is set up so that you're still going to discuss it and consider it. And it's within your discretion, but it's going to be based on certain criteria. And so for you and for Redmond, or if this happens, you just want to be able to have a record of it so that everybody knows why you made that decision. And so that's what we're going to do in that little box is discuss your reasons or if you decide to reallocate. Your guide is really the examples that are in the rule.
So actually, that's the one.
Oh, sorry, we can discuss that before we make the motion?
You should discuss it before you make
Of
the motion.
course, thank you.
So,
It'd be helpful if you just stay just category 1 and then category 2.
well, and this is what I need clarification on. We're approving the prioritization, but then then the allocation, it goes, once we make these adjustments, then it goes as far as it goes, and then it's a cutoff, or are we only going to approve the ones where we know we have funding level available?
So as an option, what the board can do is approve the priority 3. So you can have as a motion that you approve all of the applications that were submitted for priority 3, but that you're only going to fund the first, I think it's the first 6,
Yeah,
because that's what the available funding.
Okay.
But then as funding becomes available for any reason why, it's not all used in a priority 1, for example, that the 7th, 8th subsequent airport, they'll get that next available funding based on the priority already established by ARC. So we have a motion drafted that allows you to do that. So you can get this all one and done
Right.
today.
Great.
But you would like us to talk about this justification before we put a motion on?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, well, yes, and because you want to make sure that everybody agrees
With
on
the
it.
intent.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a cut and paste for all the.
Should
for the
be
ones that
similar.
We're doing.
No,
Only for
Same,
two.
we have
no,
to.
just no, because Oh, you're gonna do, so you're gonna do all
It's the
four
same
Redmond applications in
justification
one?
For all the ones we're adjusting. Is what
Not necessarily, not
Yeah.
necessarily. So you could look at the, I mean, today it probably is going to be for that reason.
Makes it
In the
easier.
future, it could be another
I
one.
agree with that. I'm just talking about today. Makes it easier.
So Andrea, let's work through the first one up, which is Red. So are you going to just combine the
Yeah, can we do all
amount?
four?
Is that how you're gonna?
I think Andrea's trying to put in all four grants
Yeah,
into that grant number.
and then the funding request.
And
To make that field bigger.
I mean, this is the first time really exploring how these rules
Yeah.
going to work. You can always finesse it. I'm sure next year this will just get better and better and better.
Yeah.
Question about,
I think,
so it's.
Andrea, maybe under the
600.
grant funding request, do you list them separately?
I'll
Combined?
actually put the combined amount. If
We can
that's
just update this form.
As we're.
Absolutely.
I mean, this same one that we're doing today, we can use this as a placeholder and then Andrew and I can update the form so it's more cleanly.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're not going to be bound by this forever. It's a great way to discuss it and record what the observations are today.
Well, I mean, for this one today.
Oh, today's fun. Yeah, there's no reason to update it here. I think that whatever Andrea writes in, I mean, it might be a little clunky because of spacing and stuff like that, but this can be the record for today. It doesn't need to be changed. It can be, I don't think it should be because it's going to reflect what the board actually decides
Yep.
today in the discussions.
So I've got Redmond's applications 3, 4, 6, and 22, and their total combined amounts 393,060.33. And then the board wants to award a maximum of 150,000 to Redmond.
Then you can see there now what I read to you earlier, which is the OAR that discusses our discretion to allocate available grant funds in a manner that maximizes impact and accessibility. And so I believe the justification here is reasonable distribution of available grant funds and overall objectives of the grant program.
Okay. Second.
And then you want to add like additional.
Well, and Chair Stevens, I would also add something that explains, even though this is a box for justification, I think I would add the explanation that Redmond has the discretion to determine how to distribute these funds across the 4 projects. Do you want me, I can cut and paste and send that to you, or I can re-say it too.
Okay.
Redmond has discretion to determine how to distribute those funds. Across the 4 projects. Or 4 applications.
You setting a precedent and allowing them to do that?
This is what I think we were not apparently clear about last year when we went through the same process. And then we thought we had clarified the grant application rules, and apparently we need to clarify that further.
So, if I may.
Yeah.
I don't think there's always the potential you're going to set precedents. One of the things the rule allows you to do is to bring in any of the airports and ask them for additional information. So, I mean, honestly, you could table this decision. I don't know if you can actually timing wise, but you could table this, you could approve everything else, table it as to Redmond and is it not Coos Bay? Did I have that wrong? Southern Oregon. Okay. So you could table it as to those 2 airports and ask them to come in I tell them what's going on. I tell them they need to reduce, like, just any additional information that you need, including if they have to get it reduced to 150,000, how would they like that money reduced? If you don't want to leave them with that particular discretion. So you do have options.
Yeah, my concern is that in the future grant cycles is that somebody comes along with the three, well, you let Redmond pick which of the three applications that they could spend the money on. Or we now just kind of put ourselves into a box that we must do that again for the next time. Somebody submits three applications, we say we can't.
But we're
give
gonna
them-
change the rules to stop that.
We're going to clarify this
Yeah.
in this instance, like as we did last year, and then we are going to work on the application rules for moving forward.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So we shouldn't hopefully be in this situation again.
Yeah, or you can draft rules around what happens if you are.
Okay. So this is the first justification that we need to work through. It will be part of the motion then. And so if there are no other edits to that, then we will work on the second one, which is for the Southwest Oregon Regional Airport.
And the total they requested. And then for the justification,
I think you can just take out the last sentence. Well, I guess you just replace the airport name. Right?
Yeah, just replace.
Yeah.
Two applications, sorry. I should say two applications at the end there.
And Andrea, you need to change out the four to four applications. So it should be two applications for that one.
The last two words.
Okay.
A different motion language.
and then really quickly, do we need to fill out one of those forms for the burns?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Because it will get funded eventually.
if more, yeah.
Is everybody's laptop and computers and phones all
On
seated
site.
over here?
Good.
Please, just like look.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, I think we're listening to a combi.
I don't even know what you guys were talking about.
Still going.
I still hear it.
Yeah, it's still
I
going.
think it's not outside. It's not like.
It's not outside. There's not a crowd outside having a rally.
It could
Okay,
be
that's
legislatures and sessions.
Sorry, didn't mean I need to turn it up because I can't hear it. Okay, so just the one motion, Stacy.
That's the only one I changed, or I added language on.
Oh, you changed it. Okay.
Yeah, I just added some language onto the end of it.
What keeps her so focused?
There we go. Okay. Let me just share my screen again. Oops. Do it that way. Okay.
Board's justification.
You want me to pull the?
So, the first draft motion, it says board's application. Board's justification or justifications.
Okay.
There's 4 motions we need to do,
Right.
or all at one time.
I'm sorry, Andrea, the second one, can you put approve all applications with priority 2? And the same with the third one.
Do you want justifications on the end of the first paragraph?
I think so.
What was that?
End of the first paragraph, just add justifications. S.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And then can we do this all in one fell swoop unless you want to talk about them separately?
Want me to hit it?
Sure.
So move to approve all applications that qualify as priority 1 pursuant to OAR-738-124-0010, section 2, paragraph A, except that the grant amounts requested by the Redmond and Southwest Oregon regional airports are reallocated so that each airport may receive a maximum total of up to $150,000 per airport based on the board's justifications. I can approve all applications that qualify as priority 2 pursuant to OAR-738-124-0010, paragraph 2, section B. Approve all applications in priority 3 pursuant to OAR -738-124-0010, section 2, paragraph C, and approve for funding immediately the grant applications submitted for Twin Oaks Airpark, George Felt Airport, Sisters Eagle Airport, Miller Memorial Airpark, and Columbia Gorge Regional Airport, and for Burns Municipal Airport, except that the grant funding for the Burns Municipal Airport is reduced to the amount of grant funds that are currently available. As additional grant funds become available, priority 3 grants will be funded according to the ARC's priority. Approve funding authorization for 2025-2026 core grants in the amount not to exceed $3,500,235.08.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Right, I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Right, and I will ask Alexis to pull the board.
Okay, and the motion was from Bill and the second was from Brian Prank.
Still catching my breath.
Bill Gropp.
Aye.
Jim Knight,
Aye.
Sarah Lucas,
Aye.
Steve Naney,
Aye.
Brian Prank,
Aye.
Jeff Pritchard's excused, and Catherine Stevens.
Aye. That motion carries. Thanks, everyone, for the hard work on that one. Appreciate it. And then I guess coming out of this, I'd like to suggest that staff come back to the board at a future board meeting with suggestions on how we can again clarify the application process in a more clear manner to all of our airport managers across the state. Bill.
It might, it might be helpful to get little input on that from the ARC. I'm not sure how we would do that, but having their input, I think, might be helpful.
Well, we've got Shelley right here. She may have some strong opinions about what needs to happen.
I think necessarily at this moment, but since we're going to discuss this for the future, I think having even a written response from you would be helpful.
Yeah, we can do a written or we can do another virtual meeting. I would say once staff looks at it and gets maybe some suggested wording on what to look at, then have the ARC look at it to make sure it meets our purpose. And then once we get that, bring it to the board for approval, then I think we need to add another piece of education for the airport managers so that they are whoever's completing the applications, so that they understand that what we're doing is we're giving them the flexibility to decide which project they're going to put in, knowing that they get $150,000 a year. So it helps us by them making that choice and not making a reliability on the board to try and decide which project is better for them. So it gives them the decision making at the beginning of the process versus at the end of the process.
I think just a general narrative from ARC of anything that you feel could help more meet the intent of the process that might, because today is this, but it might be something else in the future that you don't have the ability to change. And maybe it's appropriate that you don't, but that you can submit to the board with recommendations. Would be appreciated.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to policy planning and program updates, statewide project overview with Alex. Century What?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am very happy that we are after lunch. It's going to be quite a long presentation. We'll try to get through it as quickly as we can. Get it up on screen here. You, Shelley.
I have another tour that I'm late for. Thank you, guys.
We are up. Okay, similarly to how we had presented presentation during the December 2024 meeting on what our 24, 25, and 26 projects were at that point. We're doing something similar this time. There's been some changes, of course, in which projects actually happened in 25 and that we've moved around between 26 and 27 as well. Added a few slides in here to focus on a little bit of site on land use, a little bit more slides on the pavement, so PEP and PMP, as well as a little bit of information on the core program and some further discussion on updates to our Oregon Aviation Plan, Chapter 8 specifically, and then Chapter 3. So we'll get into that. So our initiatives are, of course, expending available or expiring funds, specifically to our FAA projects, continued pavement program improvements, including both our pavement evaluation and pavement maintenance programs, in-house procurement and contracting. So that's not really new anymore, but that's helped save us a lot of turnaround time and just cost, bringing that in-house. Core and pavement collaboration. So what we mean there is between our core and pavement programs and also working with our airport managers across the state that are recipients of both of those programs, working more closely on just ensuring that we have the best communication early, during, and after each of their core grants and or the pavement work that's being done. AM and UAS integration, and then aviation economic development. Our project's vision overall is enhancing safety, infrastructure, and innovation to support Oregon's aviation system. As we go through this, just start talking or raise your hand. There is nearly 60 slides. We're going to try to spend about 15 seconds-ish on each one.
It's not right.
Sorry, Stephen.
We lost one. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so this, I think we all know, map of Oregon. The last time we showed this, we just highlighted the blue state-owned airports, but I felt it was important to call out all of the airports because just about every public use airport receives some sort of assistance, either via our pavement program or core programs for land use or whatever it is. So you can see here, top right, pretty small for me back here, but you can see which are city, county, port, and so on owned. And then the 4 regions there, those are our pavement regions for both PEP and PMP. Okay, so here the chart on the top there indicates the blue line is our AIP or BIL or IIJA projects. You'll see those are going down slightly from 25 through 27, and that is primarily due to, again, IIJA funds going away and us spending most of those funds in our 2026 projects, with I think only 1 or 2 in 27 that would be expending the rest of it. The orange line there is our pavement. So the number is increasing. I would note though that number is very large due to a couple of factors. One is some regions just have more airports than others, and those 26 and 27 numbers are going to be dependent on the pavement evaluation process and or funding that is available for each of those airports. The bottom line is other, so that would be projects that are, say, Connect Oregon, Legislative, or SOAR. And then down the bottom there of the table, as you can see, is talks about how many project counts per year for AIP, IIJA, payment, and then again, other. We had a little bit of fun with this presentation this year. We put together kind of a key. So you'll see some icons on each of the slides as we go through this. First one there, you'll see planning projects, design, construction, environmental. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see kind of a little bar graph. We just came up with a fun way to score these. So what each project, what it is doing for the system or for the airport specifically. This isn't really anything formal. There's no, special scoring behind the scenes. It's just something we're having fun with that we may make more formalized later. S for safety, I for infrastructure, E for economic development, and F for future. So like your planning, design, things like that. Okay, 2025. Tony and Kristen went over these a little bit in their presentation, so we'll try to get through these a little bit faster than we will the 26s and 27s. Again, you're going to see a lot of repetition in some of these. A lot of our projects are infrastructure catch up on a lot of pavement projects that have just been on the backlog for years. So in 2025, we had 12 FAA projects at the airports listed there. 3 other, again, that's a mix of SOAR, Legislative, and or Connect Oregon. 22 pavement projects, PMP, regions 1, 2, and 4, and then 49 Tour Cycle 9 grants in administration with a total of 99 grant projects in progress. The chart there on the bottom, you'll see all of our core grants from 2017 to 2020 have been closed. We have a couple left in 2021 and then so on up to 2025. Note, this does not include 26, of course, so that'll add however many you approved today to this count. And then the chart there on the right was just a fun way to visualize the project count per program area. So pavement, AIP is the blue one there that you can't see because it was too small, IIJA, and then other. And that is specifically project count. The chart doesn't, it's not linked to dollars or anything like that. It's just a count. And then our first project slide. So as I pointed out a couple of slides ago, you'll see just the little truck on the bottom left. That's our construction indicator. But also we'll say it up top in the blue. And then the top right is where you see our scoring. And at this point, I will hand it over to James to start going through the projects, and then we'll come back to me a little later.
Sure. So as we do about, most weeks, we're going to run the list here and talk about the projects we did in 2025 first. So Aurora is alphabetically first, but also is a big headliner here. We did the runway 1735 rehabilitation. So we redid the surface of the runway there, milled and filled it, corrected the crown, cross slopes as FAA asked us to. Spent a total of about $3.9 million. The The balances are still coming in. I think we're going to be a little bit under budget on this one. Construction substantially complete. As I'm sure if you get your gov deliveries, you're probably well aware. We got one more day of closure we're going to have to do to get the final coat of markings down, but then that project will be fully finished. Moving on to Bandon, where you're into the surface seals now. So this is a runway and taxiway surface seal. Again, that delayed, deferred maintenance we're addressing with IIJA dollars. It's an infrastructure project primarily. About 525,000 we spent on that one. Again, substantially complete. We'll come back in the spring and do the final coating of markings on the runway and taxiway system there. So everything when you get out to these airports with these surface seals, it's all painted black. It looks really sharp. It's going to be real easy for Tony's crew to come through and restripe these moving forward. But mainly we're taking care of our deferred payment backlog and so payment maintenance backlog. And so Chiloquin is our next one here. This is a design project. So this one will get constructed. We'll hit that on the next group of airports in 26 here, but this is a design for another surface rehabilitation, another surface seal, less than 100,000 on the investment there so far. And we're going to be bidding these design projects here in March. So next month will be a busy month for bidding a lot of the surface seal work. Next one is Condon. This one hasn't got much attention recently, so we're doing more backlog, addressing that pavement maintenance backlog here again with a surface rehabilitation on the paved surfaces. So we're in the design phase on this one. Next one is Cottage Grove. So in addition to the work we did on Cottage Grove with the apron project, this is another surface seal that we constructed this summer. Completed that job, substantially completed it. One more coat of markings left to go in the spring again, and that was $360,000+ on the runway and parallel taxiway system. Next one, another one of these, Independence. This one we focused on taxiways, taxi lanes for the construction of the surface seals there with fog, slurry, crack repair, patching, all that good stuff. The reason we didn't touch the runway, that's going to receive some attention in a future job down the road here with runway rehabilitation and some safety improvements there. Another $430,000 in deferred maintenance that's been picked up here. And this one, again, substantially complete, final coat of markings in the spring again. Joseph, this one is in the design phase this year in 25. So again, deferring that pavement maintenance backlog, getting through the runway and taxiway system. Under 100,000 on that so far, and again, bidding next month. Lebanon, same idea with a design project to address runway taxiway system. A little under 100,000 there as well. And McDermott was our last of the construction of the surface seals for 25. So we did fog seal on most surfaces out there, crack repair, painting on that as well. And it's been about 345,000 on that one. And that one is fully complete. That one's finaled. Then we got Milano here, the design side, again, where we're touching the runway and we're touching the taxi lanes and some of these apron pavements that really have not gotten the attention they deserve over the years with pavement maintenance work there. Milano is also going to get some other attention. We talked about this a little bit today, the hangar and waterline project. That's in design right now. We're in final design on that. So what that looks like is some additional hangar spaces for Tony and extension to some taxi lane and apron pavements, along with a stormwater detention facility out there. And in order to get to the point of being able to build that building, we're expanding the waterline capacity out there. So replacing a bunch of waterline in the loop that's out there, completing that loop, making sure it's all sized for building fire protection, as the fire marshal has asked us to do. And then we can do the building to go along with it. That one's a little bit bigger. We've been working on this one for a long time. Finally managed to get this one down the road with funding of almost 2.9 million there.
And this project, Milano was at a point where it could no longer expand. We could not build any additional hangars due to the limitations of the current waterline system for fire management. So that was it.
Yeah.
And then me. So
yeah.
Oh, you still get to do this one.
So Cape Blanco, this was wrapping up the construction on this. This is a runway rehabilitation project. You can see the pretty pavement there in the picture there. rehab the keel section on this one end to end and added a new electrical system, the first new electrical system out there in 70 years maybe. So now we have full electrical and some good pavement to be used there. And that one is finally complete. That was other funded through legislative earmark for $3.5 million. Started that back in 2024 and we are substantially complete. Really, I think we're finally complete. We're just getting through some sort of warranty lighting fixture issues, and then we'll be done with that completely. But you notice on this one too, it's not only safety and infrastructure, it also includes that future component in the project. So we're thinking down the road on this one for the resiliency piece of it.
Back to me. So Prospect is another one. So similar to some of the other projects, runway rehabilitation construction. So again, some deferred pavement maintenance backlog due to excessive damage as a recurring fire base just about every summer, past few years. And we also have the great addition of 4 new helipads, which we had not had there before. So I think most of us know anytime an airport is used as a fire base, that all of that fire equipment is very rough on any pavement surface at and around the airport and damages the pavement and reduces its life expectancy quite drastically. It's all very heavy equipment. So that was done for just under $3 million and construction's complete. Will be completion here in just a few months. So PEP, blank slide there, 2025, we did not have any pavement evaluation work due to just a plan to help ourselves get caught up with the pavement maintenance program. Pavement maintenance, so Kristen went into this a little bit. I won't go through the whole list again, but we did have construction at Region 1. Just about completed Region 4. The only one we have remaining is Grant County. That one, once again, was delayed another season just due to the fire management, needs of the airport. We weren't able to get out there as we needed to. Just under 1.3 million into the grand total of all of those airports. Pavement maintenance design for Region 2. So it'll be designed this year and implemented next year. 2025 land use total. So aeronautical studies, we had 327 completed in 2025, which includes assessments for cranes, housing, developments, etc. And we had 524 land use notices and development permits reviewed from local and state jurisdictions in 2025. Any questions on the 25 projects?
I had one. So the 2 slides back on the PMP, Oak Ridge is listed, but we're repaving Oak Ridge. So
yes. So that one is dependent on how bids come in because there are 2 pieces of that. There's the runway and then there's the apron taxiway piece. If the apron taxiway piece is able to be incorporated into that project, we won't do PMP out there this summer.
That makes sense.
Yeah. We don't want to skip it if it's not going to get in some other way.
And to that point, that is something that we're making a more formalized procedure and policy on to work more closely with each of the airports, because in the past there has been that where we go out and do pavement maintenance work and then a year or 2 later they already had some FAA project planned, and so that is being we're working to address that within our normal operating procedures. 26. Again, summary of all the 26 projects. So you'll see 10 FAA projects at the airports listed there. A couple of them have multiple projects, such as Condon, Joseph, Malino. 1 other, Oak Ridge via Connect Oregon. 33 pavement. We do have PEP in 26 for Region 3, and then PMP again, 2 and 3. And then system plan. So this year, so the last several years, our system plan has been primarily just limited to the pavement evaluation program and just continuing that. We did not have that last year again to help ourselves get caught up on PMP. And we'll get into this more further into the presentation, so I'll quickly go over it here, but we will be updating Chapter 8 to our Oregon Aviation plan. I'll get into that later. Won't take up the time yet. So, and then again, chart on the right, total project count throughout all of the different programs. Pass it over to James again.
Yeah, so our first project on the list here for 2026, is environmental studies for clearing the 7-to-1 imaginary surfaces out at Bandon. Got a bunch of trees and gorse and things that are encroaching on the runway there that we want to get rid of. First step is to get through environmental studies in support of a documented CAD-X that then we'll hopefully get into design and get down the road there. So this is one of those that'll start this summer with grants being released. And we're estimating this at about $200,000 for that effort. Chiloquin is the next one here. So this is the next phase of that Chiloquin project I mentioned a minute ago. So we design it in 25, we construct in 26. So actually putting the fog seal, the crack repair, the patching on the ground at Chiloquin. And we're estimating this prior to bid. We haven't bid these projects yet. Again, these are bidding in March. About 455,000 is what we're expecting there, and to start that here this summer upcoming. Another one of these construction phases, again, Condon, slurry seal anticipated on those pavements with other things to support the distress repair. About 356,000 for this one for the construction phase. Another thing happening at Condon was we have planned a master plan and an Aegis update for this airport. This one, along with some of the other airports in the ODEV inventory, has an ALP it's aging. It was last updated in 2002, so it's due for a master plan update here. The graphic there is the old one. You can see some fairly dated logos and plot styles and things like that. We're estimating this one at 371,000, and that's again going to start hopefully this summer once grants get released. Independence, we have a PAPI replacement project that's been mentioned. Those existing PAPI units will be replaced in their existing locations, anticipating that we move those later with the runway project upcoming. But those PAPIs are in bad shape. They're beyond their design life. They're not reliably in service. So we'll replace those where they're at. And that one's estimated 152,000, again, this summer for construction. Joseph, coming back to that one, the AWAS. So similar to the Independence project, the equipment replacement, this one we're going to take the existing AWAS location, swap out the equipment. So again, it's more reliable and will stay in service. We don't have to spend so much time out there maintaining it. Again, we'll stick with a 3PT to support the approach, and yeah, 200,000 anticipated on that one, and that's to reimburse both design and construction phases on that project. Again, at Joseph, construction phase of the surface seal to address that, pavement maintenance backlog again, combination of fog, slurry, crack repair, all those things needed to continue that the life of that investment out there on that. Joseph Airport, 760,000 is the estimated investment for that one. For Lebanon, same idea, runway taxiway. This one's a combination again of fog and slurry. Cost on this one down at 530,000, anticipated to go this summer again. Sound like a broken record a little bit here, but there's a lot of pavement maintenance backlog to address. So this is the construction phase, that Milano surface seal project. So fog and slurry again. The runway, the taxiways in the back, and the hangars and the apron that haven't gotten a lot of attention. Get that distress work done. Estimate here is 598,000. And then more construction on this hangar and waterline project. So we'll bid it here very soon, March anticipated, and then we'll be looking to construct. So working on the waterline first, that's anticipated to come out of the gate first while hangar goes through permitting. And then once the water line is complete and fire marshal can support the pushing ahead the building, then we'll be building those hangars. And Oak Ridge, want to cover that?
Sure. So Oak Ridge again is a Connect Oregon project. We're very excited that this is happening. And again, Oak Ridge is used quite extensively as a wildfire fire management base each summer. And the pavement there, if anybody's been there, is very obviously in need of some work on pretty much every pavement surface there. So again, this is to address some deferred pavement maintenance backlog and just extensive damage. About 3.2 million, a little over that, and then construction would start here this spring, summer.
Okay. Connect Oregon with a SOAR match.
With the SOAR match, yes, thank you. PEP again. So again, we will have PEP here in 2026 at these Region 3 airports listed here. just over 160,000. Pavement maintenance program, Region 2, construction. Again, airports listed here, a little under $1 million. Pavement maintenance design at Region 3. So note here, this list of airports and just their needs will be dependent on the earlier pavement evaluation portion of each individual airport. So to Chair Stevens' point, it's entirely possible some of these may not even be on this list if they've had other work done recently. So this will change as we move forward. Any questions on 26? Are we still awake?
Yes.
Moving right along. 27. We need more coffee, Alexis. No. 27 summary. So you'll start to see here, we're starting to get a little bit less projects. Again, a lot of that is linked to the IIJA. So while it's, fortunate to see the funds go, it is fortunate that we'll have less projects to manage each year. But hopefully we may see another program similar to IIJ in the future so we can continue keeping our airports where they should be and improving upon them where we can. So we have 9 FAA projects. The airports listed there. Again, a couple of them have multiple other airport projects to be determined. So Tony mentioned SOAR and some of those potential projects being presented to the board here at a future meeting. This list for the other airport projects, if it does include SOAR, we would update the future presentation. Again, 46 pavement programs. That's a very big number. That would likely be smaller, if anything, in the instance that a handful of airports may be removed from that listing. And then 1 system plan. We had Chapter 8 for 26. For 27, the plan at this point is a Chapter 3 update, which is the forecast on aviation demand.
Yeah, so as Alex said, one thing you won't see on this list for 27 is a lot of that surface seal work. So we're into kind of more standard projects here. So this one for Aurora is the obstruction removal project. So at this point, we'll be done hopefully with easement acquisition, and we'll be able to reimburse those with FAA and then work into final design of the obstruction removal projects proper to get those trees down and those obstructions lit where they need to be. Anticipated estimate here is $825,000 with this starting in 2026. So we're working on contracting this right now. Another project for Aurora here, this environmental phase of an ongoing program. And this includes looking at environmental impacts for pavement-related rehabilitation, standards improvements. That includes taxiway rehabilitation. Is that taxiway, the parallel taxiway is getting to the end of its service life. It's starting to show some serious cracking. We're looking at the apron access points and potential islanding of that. Some of the things we've been talking about today, signage and lighting along the taxiway. And then there's also a drainage ditch that's inside, in between the runway and taxiway that needs to get undergrounded or regraded to standards. So the estimated investment there is about $500,000 for that kind of pre-design phase and environmental assessment for that project. And again, this one's not only standards and infrastructure, but it's also future looking because this is part of a program of looking at other things besides just pavement proper. We're looking at the access points and some of those things as well. Chiloquin, same idea here. There's another big obstruction removal project as we were talking about Aurora a minute ago. So again, easement acquisition reimbursement, final design on obstruction removal. Budget on this one's about $705,000 there. And then in these graphics, you can kind of see in the red there, that's the obstructions that we've identified in those approaches. So lots of work to do there in Chiloquin. Both approaches, north and south. Independence. So this is an environmental phase for the runway and safety improvements project I mentioned earlier. So this is going to support those studies of the impacts from a future runway shift, a runway rehabilitation, Some associated taxiway relocations for direct access and for an inline taxiway situation we've got going on there to meet standards. And these are all concerns raised in the last master plan. We're entering this program to kind of fix those things. And this assessment, we're estimating at 250,000. Again, spring start in 2027. Joseph, same idea as Chiloquin and with those obstructions. So we'll get into reimbursement for easement acquisition, design for the removal of those obstructions. This guy's it's a little one. We've only got a few obstructions there. You can see them highlighted on the right side. There are trees mostly and one pole. Pretty easy to get those out of the way. So between the easements and the design, we're only talking about 260,000 to get that stuff solved. Lebanon. So this is a big one. This is the taxiway reconstruction, drainage improvements, bunch of improvements, safety things that were identified in the last master plan. So we're pulling a bunch of pavement out that's not being used, relocating some direct access taxiways, aligning the parallel taxiway at a standard offset with the runway center line, and then removing an inline taxiway on the south end of the airport and relocating those connectors. Again, all needs that were identified in the master plan, we're putting them all together here. So we reduce the amount of environmental impact that we do on the airport in this one project. You've seen a couple of phases on this one before with an environmental assessment and then a whole permitting phase working on our core permits to address the needs for wetland impact in order to move these taxiways around and do some rehabilitation. This one's estimated at 550,000. Then Malino, another obstruction removal here. You see the stuff in orange there. Again, those obstructions that are identified. The things in green have already been taken care of because they were covered by our existing easements or on ODAV property. And then the balance of those things that are not enclosed in either the red or green or part of this project. So getting those easements and then designing the removal of those obstructions has a budget of 632,000. Slets Bay, another AWAS project. This will be a new AWAS though. Slets Bay does not currently have one. It's been on the master plan since the 90s as a possibility. So we're gonna add this one. A lot of the infrastructure is already in place. It's just a matter of putting the AWAS in and tying it to electrical and comm, and should be good. So one of the things Tony's folks are going to be working on this winter is clearing out some trees and some things around that space so we can potentially look at that AWAS. So that's going to be a design and construction grant, reimbursing design, and then paying for the construction as bid. We're estimating that one at 370,000.
Staff got stuck out there yesterday.
Are they working on those trees right now?
They are right now, yeah.
Oh man, it's a little wet out there right now. There's a lot of wetland, and that's part of the reason it's good that the infrastructure to power it is already in place, so we don't have to go trenching through anything nasty. But access is interesting. Another Slets Bay project. Again, this is one of those fairly old master plans that needs an update. So we've got that on the list here. It's had its 30th birthday last year, so it's time to get a new master plan there. The drawings, you see that from the original master plan. That one does not even have the parallel taxiway on it when it was put together in '95. It was a dream that was put in 2002. So lots changed at Slets Bay. We need to do a planning effort and an AGIS update out there to reflect that, show what the future needs are. That one's estimated at 305,000.
Okay. Back to PEP, planning for Region 4. So as I was mentioning earlier in the presentation, you'll see Region 4 has a long list of airports that are within that region, covers a massive portion of the state, which is why you'll see the numbers so high. We're doing any type of Region 4 work. And again, we get into the pavement maintenance portion of, well, not quite yet. Region 3 construction will happen during 27. Estimated is 1 million. And this all is dependent on the pavement evaluation, what its findings are at each of the airports, whether or not all of the airports even remain on the list. And we haven't received bids yet, so ideally the number would be less than that, but that's what we're estimating it at this point. And then Region 4 designed for the PMP program. Again, these are all dependent on PEP earlier in the process, with about 110 invested at this point. And then the Oregon Aviation Plan. So the current plan was adopted back in 2016 and quite expensive. I don't recall offhand what it was, but it was a very large document with quite a few chapters. And what our plan now at this point is, rather than, requesting or needing 5, 6, 700, a very big portion of, or a very big pool of funds to redo the entire document. Our plan and costs, of course, have not gone down for anything. They continue to go up. We're going to take a modular approach to each of the chapters, to where not quite every year, but close to that, we would pick a chapter, update it, and in some instances pick multiple chapters when they're the smaller chapters. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But so for 2026, we're doing chapter 8, which is the economic impact of Oregon airports. I'd like to update it to something along the lines of general, economic impact of aviation in Oregon. And you'll see on the screen some of the focus points. This is not, gone out for bid yet. It will very soon. So we don't know exactly what the end product will look like, but what we're looking to do is reflect the current conditions, incorporate emerging technologies such as AAM, UAS, highlight regional equity, support strategic planning and funding, forecast future growth, and communicate the public value of aviation throughout the state. Estimated project investment, 430. So we have on our CFP at the moment. Ideally, that would be less, but we'll see when we get bids. 2027 questions.
So I noticed that several of the 27 projects have EAs, but it looks like a lot of, maybe not a lot, but some of those things could be CADXs. So is there consideration to that?
So yeah, we've done had long environmental discussions with FAA over all these projects.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the EA you might have seen on some of those slides is actually easement acquisition. We abbreviate.
We're using the same letters for both. Maybe.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so those it was intended to save a little space on the slide.
Okay.
Yeah. So those especially the obstruction removal projects, those EAs were completed years ago at this point. And that was back when, because the obstructions were off airport property and required easement acquisition, FAA required us to put those through an EA process, where now the Bandon one you saw up there for 2026, that one's going to be a documented CADX situation, because they're allowing us, even though some of those obstructions are off property, they're allowing us to go that way with them. So a lot more streamlined, a lot quicker. That'll be a lot better process for that airport specifically.
Way less expensive.
That's it.
Okay.
I do that pretty quick.
Not bad. Any additional questions? Okay, thank you for that presentation.
Yes.
All right, we're running up on our 2 p.m. end of meeting time. So this is the time for board updates. If any board members have any updates they'd like to share with the group.
Following this, I'm scooting straight to the Dallas port for our first PAC meeting on our master plan process. So looking forward to participating in that, both as a user of our airfield, but also just to help my intelligence as a board member.
Great. Nothing. I would just share that since last board meeting, Eugene, we have launched Lift Off the EUG. It's an initiative to look at additional funding sources because our capital program is pretty big, and through traditional funding means we can't get all of the things built that we need to build. So we're looking at all sorts of things, including tapping into additional congressional funding, state funding. We're exploring P3s, public-private partnerships. We're even exploring naming rights and benefactor funding. And so we're working with a consulting group that I put together to kind of gather all the best ideas from around the country, and we've glommed it all together. So we've not seen the actual model that we're using before. But we've got a website launched. If you're curious, it's Liftoff EUG. Yes, that one right there. And it'll take you through our exploration. So what we're in now is a feasibility phase to see, what are the options and how much support there is potentially for utilizing some of these additional options. And I would just say preliminarily, things are very positive. And then we would launch into a more robust fundraising campaign, for lack of a better word. It'll be take multiple different forms. So just thought I would share that with all of you.
I can name your taxiway if I donate.
Yep, we can talk. We can talk.
Or at least your handicap bathrooms.
Something like that, yeah. Okay, other business. Is there any other business board members would like to bring up?
There's a Washington Aviation Day that's coming up in Triala. We have it's only $10 to go, right? So I'm gonna drive up. But we don't do anything like that in Oregon, do we?
Well, we have Oregon Airport Manager Association. Yeah,
it's just a general conference.
General aviation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several people from Aurora are presenting.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But I didn't know if we had anything like that here at the Puyallup in Washington State.
I think Robbie would be the last iteration of something like that I can think of. But perhaps you can bring back that information to the board next.
I'll take some
time.
pictures.
That'd be great.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I've never gone to it.
It's and it is meant to be regional, but that doesn't mean we can't have something ourselves.
Yeah. So.
Right. Any agenda input for future sessions? I know we've asked staff to bring back additional direction on the core grant program.
I just want to thank the staff for all the hard work that they're doing. This has been this time of the year is really a tough one with all of the grant information. I really appreciate your updates and where things stand with projects. That's really helpful. Helps keep me on track with what you're doing. But my appreciation to the staff for all your hard work.
And likewise to Shelley's gone, but to the ARC and all the people that make that happen.
Very good. I'll express my appreciation as well between the annual report and, the presentation that we just had on all of the projects and progress that's been made over the past several years. It's really very impressive, especially with our small budget.
I also want to express appreciation to Stacy for being here. You take a lot of pressure off of some of the decision making that we're doing to keep us in line. So thank you for what you do for us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, with that, our next meeting is March 5th. It will be an online meeting. We will see you all there, and we are adjourned.
See you, everybody.
First.